label. I'm going to bounce out for a second. You guys can talk amongst yourselves. We're going to do the stream starting thing, so we have a clean cut for you, and I hope you're going to enjoy this. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Okay, stand by.
I swear I'm not tiny.
Kind of sus.
That's funny.
How's your days going, guys?
All right. Not bad.
It's going. It's going.
So, Cypher, I remember you from last debate, man, and I was thoroughly impressed with you. I'm actually glad to see you again and be able to engage with you. Hopefully, I can give you a little more substance on this debate or this conversation because I felt completely outmatched on that last one.
Well, I'll take the compliment. To be honest with you, I didn't have a chance to prepare much for this, so hopefully I still show a good showing.
This I think will be very interesting personally, but I don't know exactly where it's going to go because I had no idea where that last one was going to go. So
that's fair. Did you? You should check out the international news roundup that we did. The Crowdsourced Politics podcast did yesterday. It's up on YouTube already. We had Dylan Burns on actually and Turing News, so it's a pretty substantive discussion.
Yeah. Okay, you guys are live now. We've got you captured. Captive audience.
Hey.
Hello, everyone.
Hello,
captive audience.
I want to welcome you to the
best audience.
Yeah, to this panel, special request panel. If we can get Twitch to cooperate for you guys so you can see what we're doing, bring our panelists on. This is all about immigration in the context of Biden's policy. Is immigration really a surge? Is there really a crisis? What's really going on? We have Tiberius D, Counterpoints, A Difficult Truth, CSP Cipher, which is crowdsourced politics as well, Socratease TV, and an indigenous perspective, which is usually not represented. I want to give you guys a chance, if you want to shout yourselves out, say a little bit about yourself, and then I'm going to go into a very brief history of immigration in the United States. So, Ty, if you'd like to start.
All right, sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Tyberius D. I run the company and show Geopolitics Tiberius D, and I'd like to talk about stuff like this particular topic very well. I usually try to reach out to North America, and particularly Western Europe is more of my specialty as far as what's going on there, but I do try to tag a little bit of everywhere around the world. Immigration is a very important factor in geopolitics, not only for the push forces of why you would actually leave a country, but the pull forces on why you would actually want to go to another one and what that country is. As we have seen throughout most of history, the United States is a major country to be reckoned with when it comes to immigration. Why that is and how we should handle that's probably going to be the majority of this discussion. I'm very excited to be here, so I hope this is a great panel.
Okay. Counterpoints.
Should I just do like a personality intro, or should I also do like my opening arguments?
You're just going to do a little bit of an intro because I'm going to be guiding your conversation here for a bit.
Fair enough. My name is Connor. I run a YouTube channel named Counterpoints. I'm actually really excited. We just broke 5K recently. I do Warhammer 40K reactions. I do military reactions. But like my main jab is politics. So I do panel debates such as this. I do rants into the void. I identify as center right. Some people have problems with that contention. I'm definitely a centrist. And I punch right, I punch left, I punch all over.
Okay, so we're gonna have a lot of punching going on. And
it's at least entertaining, even if you don't like my takes.
Socratease.
Hello, I'm Socratease over here at Socratease TV. I do politics, I do rhetoric, I do philosophy. Trying to learn a little bit of everything and try to teach people how to ask questions, and that's a lot of what I'll be doing on here, because this is not an area of expertise that I have been able to put a lot of research into. So I'm going to be trying to learn as much as possible, and also trying to ask some questions to dig into a little deeper on things. So really happy to be here. Really happy to be here with these fine folks.
And A Difficult Truth.
Hey everyone, I am a difficult truth. I usually do news and politics in the morning from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We just have an awesome time just hanging out, doing the good old news in the morning. And I'm really excited to talk about immigration, especially in a panel like this, because I know that we're gonna have an awesome and productive conversation.
And CSP Cypher, who's a cohort, and we do the news roundup with him.
Hey, everybody. My name is Cypher from the Crowdsourced Politics podcast. We've been podcasting for about a year and a half or so now. We cover a variety of topics, anything ranging from MMT to the alt-right to the Libyan civil war. We try to do a news roundup every Wednesday. We cover a host of the issues weeks that was from Wednesday to Wednesday of the following week. We did just do a pilot episode for international news roundup, so we are trying to do these kind of things. Political wise, I guess I'm lib left. People can call me shit lib or progressive cuck or whatever else they want to call me, but I have my own ideas, and so hopefully I will be able to contribute to this conversation.
Okay, we're having Twitch glitches, but I think they can all still hear everything. And let's see. What I wanted to do. There's so many people to shout out. I'm hoping we get a lot of shout outs for this. What I wanted to do was start with a little bit of a history of immigration. It's kind of a refresher. It's quite long. Starting in 1776, when Thomas Paine published his Common Sense doctrine, is that he believed that it was Europe that was the parent, really, truly, of America, not England. About 6 months later, that proved to be the case. Originally, immigration was seen as the colonists arriving to seeking civil and religious liberty. Very quickly, the Naturalization Act was for any free white person of good character who'd been living in the U.S. for 2 years. And so immigration in the United States has been in defiance of England. It has been for civil and religious liberty, that's accepted as a reason to come here, but that this should only be given to free white people of good character. So, little factoid, the very first U.S. Census was done in 1790. There were 3.9 million colonist citizens here. All of them were English. Even though about 800,000 individuals living here were African. So they were not included, which meant that America was founded with white Englishmen and Africans. America has always been a black and white country to this day. When we talk about immigration, those clear-cut lines get blurred. The Irish arrived here in 1815, famously, after the so-called peace attained by the War of 1812, where England finally said, have it. The Germans and Irish, for 100 years, constituted a vast majority of immigrants. Irish were about 1/3. There were 5 million German people here. There was at one time a question before the government, should German be the official language? There were so many immigrants by 1819, they had to pass the Steerage Act that required better conditions on ships. For the first time, the captains had to submit the demographic data, and so we eventually have Ellis Island. The pushback starts roughly 75 years after the United States is formed, with the Know Nothing Party, definitively anti-immigration. Why were they called Know Nothing? If you asked them what their party was, they said, nothing. I know nothing. I don't know anything about this. States tried to pass their own laws after the Civil War. Supreme Court decided no, only the federal government can decide on immigration laws. Immigration is a federal issue. Although states along borders are now involved The Chinese began to be excluded in 1880, famously after having already built the railroads. In San Francisco, Japan was accorded what's called a gentleman's agreement. We will ease up some of these restrictions. You'll stop sending people, and in return, we will stop segregating our schools. Many immigrations act passed since then. By 1880, with the second wave, 20 million immigrants arrived to this nation. Southern, Eastern, Central Europe, 4 million Italians, 2 million Jewish people. Immigration Act 1891 found other reasons to restrict people. Polygamy, criminals, the sick, or the diseased. The Federal Office of Immigration is established and inspectors of ports of entry. At Ellis Island opens in 1892. Immediately, a IQ test was commissioned, mainly by Russian theorists, to restrict people or place people based on IQ, the famous Polish discrimination, which was highly disputed even by the Russian researchers that created it. One of them walked rather famously. He managed to be sent to some place guaranteeing he would catch tuberculosis, and then after dead, they declared him the father of Russian psychology. So, 12 million more, 1892, 1954. Mexico, the Bracero program. Temporary workers in World War II, 1942, were necessary and therefore were allowed in on temporary work visas all the way until 1964. When these visas are revoked and they'd already been here for an entire generation, and there was no Mexico to go back to for them, and they protested the right to stay, 2 million people were displaced with the closing of that border. And this is aside from the Dust Bowl situation. After that, America seemed to make it its policy under LBJ that not separating families. This was bad faith. This was un-American to do that. And so refugees and asylum seekers were not only allowed and welcomed in, there was a lot of COINTELPRO, Operation Peter Pan. Castro, under his regime, had 14,000 orphans on boats showing up, etc., etc., etc. Amnesty had to be given with the Simpson-Mazzali Act to all those people who had already been here under this the new laws that were being imposed. You had another 125,000 Cubans. The Mariel boat lift. A lot of people still remember the boat people and the crisis that caused. Currently, the DREAM Act, 2001, didn't pass. DACA. Don't deport these kids brought illegally, but can't give them a path to citizenship. And then Trump's infamous travel bans or famous travel bans. Chad was finally removed from the list of 7 other countries. And that's where we are more or less today with the 2021 so-called immigrant crisis, with a surge, with the dispute being, is it really a surge, or what were the factors leading to this? So there's your little history lesson. I know some of you didn't need it, so thank you for your patience. But if all of you can speak to this current issue, perhaps in a historical context, the U.S. has a very crooked pattern, a very erratic pattern, highly politicized, obviously. And so what do each of you think of this, quote, surge of especially unaccompanied minors, which are granted amnesty? And what do you think the factors are in the historical context? No pressure.
Sure.
Does anyone go first, or
Yeah, we've lost somebody. Who popped off?
I popped off for a second?
Great. I
Yeah,
hope you
we're
heard that
all
all.
here.
Okay. Tiberius is the one who's geopolitical, and it's his expertise that we're kind of
Mhm.
keen on. So, take your time.
I'll go if
Yeah.
you don't mind.
Please.
All right,
please,
so
please.
yeah, sure. There's a level where is this a surge by numerical numbers? Yes. I actually did a episode on this on the podcast not too terribly long ago with an immigration attorney. We predicted this. unironically, is that because of COVID, before COVID, we were usually seeing something on the order of, over the trend of a year, about 90,000 border, they call it excursions, apprehensions, that kind of thing, happening on the border every year on a monthly basis. Now, obviously, during the summer, that would get more. During the winter, that would get less. But that was generally the average. What we're seeing right now is that the trend line is up almost 25% over what we saw in 2019. So if you're just going to talk about numbers in absolute, yes, it is a surge. The reason why I expected that is simply COVID. COVID shut it down. We saw it decrease by a factor of about 40, or sorry, not a factor, but about 40%. People don't want to get sick, and they actually did try to make sure that they weren't going to spread the pandemic, not only into the U.S. themselves, but also as they were traveling here and they were in, I don't want to call them internment camps, but what we see in Mexico is there's a bunch of refugee camps on the Mexican side before they're processed as asylum seekers, or they try to get over here, that they would camp out in. And obviously, the more that they're there, the more likely they are to catch COVID and get the disease. And there is reports, at least that I've heard, that some of them did very much get that. So at least in a numerical sense, yes, this is a surge. Should it be expected? Yeah. And in fact, I'll put it this way. If me and this immigration attorney are right, we will probably see anywhere between 1.2 and 1.5 total border incursions over the course of this year, which would be up over 2019 at 900,000.
Well, those are the facts from the field. Okay, each of you, you can just jump on in and put in your 2 cents on this. I don't want to strangle you with too many rules and orders. If you just want to go ahead and start.
Well, I'm gonna strangle myself with some rules, and I'm gonna do my intro kind of in the classic style that you taught me how to do, with like point and then following points. Okay.
Thank you.
So I think the economic argument is fairly settled, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time like relitigating it, because I think we've already figured it out. Okay. Essentially, a whole bunch of very high-profile leftists, Destiny Vosh or whatever, they've litigated this issue about a dozen times, and basically immigration is a net negative or net positive from a economic standpoint. So whatever depreciating wages you have for the lower classes or the working class inside the United States are made up for in the cost, like the reduction in costs of like material goods that all Americans consume, including the working class. Not only that, when you're looking at the GDP, basically, like not only do immigrants like add a decent amount to the GDP, but they are net positive contributors once everything is calculated. It's like a small profit margin, I guess, but it's still there. So I would like to move past the economic argument, because my argument is cultural. So my argument is, I'm a Republican because I care about a republic. I am interested in a republic perpetuating itself into the future. I do not think that liberal democratic virtues are like, genetic. I don't think that like human beings are just born and they just like believe in liberal democracy, and they believe in mixed economy capitalism, and they believe in like the American dream and fucking all that kind of bullshit. I think these are values that are taught to people. I think they're also values that we promote as a society. And what I don't like from not necessarily anybody here, but what I don't like from leftists is just this fucking, what I view as a naive fantasy that we can just accept unlimited people into this country who have completely different values than we do, and that they'll just assimilate to us naturally. I think if you want to make that argument, it has to be controlled. Like the amount of people who come in at a certain time, and also the values that those people hold has to be controlled. Second, there are also secondary and tertiary effects that we don't calculate in whether or not immigration is good for America. So, for instance, I think globalist economics, while maybe a net positive over the span of the future of mankind, I think basically shipping our middle class jobs overseas, importing a whole bunch of high-skilled labor from other countries using visa programs, while this is all good economically, we've effectively gutted our middle class inside the United States. Another thing that we're not considering is brain drain from developing nations. We basically steal the best and brightest from other countries. And some of these countries are already failed states that can barely afford to lose the people they're already losing. So we can't just have the United States of America be the only country in this calculus. Finally, this is my last point, and then I'll yield. Biden's rhetoric. So Trump's rhetoric is fairly clear, which is basically, if you come here as an illegal immigrant, you're not going to be allowed in. We're going to catch you. We're going to deport you unless you have some kind of like legal standing to actually seek asylum or refugee status. Biden's rhetoric is assumed to be more dovish. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. He's actually maintained a lot of Trump's immigration policies. But because it's assumed to be more dovish, I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing a surge, is because Republicans now have a reputation as these fucking hardline, racist, anti-brown Nazis who aren't going to let you in. And Democrats, because they made a whole bunch of oohing and awing about the fucking shittiness of Trump, they are the brown and black loving, fucking open border, leftist, socialist, fucking hedonist assholes who will just let anybody in for any reason. So regardless of whether or not the perception is true, that's the perception. And I think maybe Tiberius can, maybe he can back me up, maybe he can't. Back me up that this rhetoric is translating into people's actions. And with that, I'll yield.
Can I have a difficult truth?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is American culture? And what does that have to do with like the argument? Like it feels like there's a lot of feels arguments coming, because like I don't know what like quote unquote adapting to American culture means. I think that everybody contributes to society, and I think America is one of the most diverse countries. I mean, we are literally a country of immigrants. That's the whole point. We're a melting pot with different cultures and different peoples. So I don't know what American quote unquote culture means in that sense. Also, I think that yes, there is a surge, but this is a surge that happens seasonally. This has been well documented with CBP data that, in fact, I believe somebody mentioned 2019, there was actually in percentage-wise, a higher surge under the Trump administration during these times, simply because, well, it's just less hot. That's why these things happen. However, it is to be noted that it is a little bit more unusual because of was it you, Tiberius, I believe? Because of COVID, all of the people who weren't going to be in the surge of 2020, because this happens every season, it's well documented. I think even from 2012, this has been well documented that these are the times where immigration just surges. But because of the COVID, the people who didn't come in 2020 are coming in now. So yes, it's a little bit more than quote unquote normal. But it is definitely a surge, but it's not out of the ordinary. What is out of the ordinary is that there is definitely a higher number of unaccompanied minors. That is what is different, I think, and that's what's causing like the disconnect in terms of like how they're dealing with this, how they're dealing with it, and the abhorrent conditions and stuff like that. I don't know if they are really properly suited for this, but yeah. And with that, I yield.
And Cypher.
Yeah, so I think that Counterpoint and I'm sorry, I have to read your name here really quick. A Difficult Truth both have good points with this. The what I mean by that is that I believe that the rhetoric that Biden has had, at least dealing with minors, has been more dovish than even Obama, potentially, at least Obama during the early years. And I think that what we're seeing here is the same kind of lies and things like that coming from coyotes and human traffickers inside Central and South America, telling these parents that if we get your kids across the border, they're going to be granted U.S. citizenship. And this is based on, the little bit of some half-truths and some misunderstanding about what DACA program will mean if it's made permanent. So I think that that's a point that we kind of meld here. To answer A Difficult Truth's point about what possibly counterpoints means, and counterpoints, please tell me if I am incorrect on this, is that when we talk about American culture, we're talking about core values. And the way that I look at these core values, it's things like liberal democracy, freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of religion, like the things that are kind of encapsulated inside the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, as well as different what conservatives would like to call Judeo-Christian values, which really doesn't exist, but it's kind of like a melding of religious theory from both Jewish, Christian, Catholic, Reformation from Europe. But the rest of it, and this is going to come across badly, it doesn't matter. And when I say it doesn't matter, it means like everybody can have their own cultural proclivities. For example, maybe celebrating the Day of the Dead, celebrating Eid, celebrating all these other different things, as long as they commit to those core, what I call core cultural values, the rest of the stuff can be melded in and we get the melting pot situation. So if that is incorrect, please correct me. But I think that that's what he's getting at. As to what we're seeing as far as historical context, I really believe that what it's boiling down to is that we're seeing increased rates of near failed states within Central and South America, partly caused by United States interference in these countries. And because of that, you're seeing an upsurge of migration to the U.S. It's cultural, it's economically driven, but it's also driven by the instability of the states themselves. And so if we here, the United States, helps build those countries back up and make amends from the fucked up things that we did, and actually get those countries back into a stable position, you'll see that go away for the most part.
That's a very broad range of perspectives, which is fantastic. So for the chat and for yourselves, Title 42, Trump evoked Title 42. It was to expel or deport instantly anyone in these detention centers that might be sick, have COVID, for instance. They did it. They said it was COVID. It was a justification. The regular numbers dropped to more or less the usual numbers. And then, of course, he took a lot of credit for it. But this administration said that Title 42 will no longer be applied to unaccompanied minors. And many feel that that is what is responsible for these unaccompanied minors for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they can still hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
So there's that. I wanted your opinions on, and also if we can go ahead and talk about push-pull factors and what you know of them, since you want the economic off the table, then talk about the cultural.
Sure. So I just want to solidify my point just to make sure that there's no confusion. So CSP was able to articulate basically my perspective, and just to clarify it for ADT. So what is American culture? I view it as this like European Enlightenment tradition, balanced government, fucking colonial settler society that's primarily Anglophone. Okay, that's what I think American culture is. Now we could shift into like a basically like a synthesis of like Spanish colonial and American colonial and Native American cultural influences. But to pretend that that's not a culture is kind of weird to me, because like basically like what would happen if I went to like Eastern Europe and I was like, well, you guys are just a hodgepodge of different ethnicities and different languages. What is even your culture? Like that's weird. It's a synthesis of like history and culture and technology and tradition and religion and all that kind of stuff. It's the same culture as across the rest of the planet. And while we have a more flexible culture, I think that there are linchpins that allow for that flexibility. So the reason why freedom of speech or freedom of conscience is so important, why it's a linchpin to our society, is because it allows us to have difficult conversations when there's disagreement between our vying cultures. When basically people are very passionate about abortion, or they're very passionate about gun control, or they're passionate about this or passionate about that. Freedom of speech and freedom of conscience allows us to resolve those differences peacefully, and that's a linchpin of our culture. When talking about the Second Amendment, which I view as something that was created in order to maintain balance of power between the civilians and the government, this is a cultural tradition back to the American Revolutionary War, where the people who founded this country basically said that if a government is not working for you properly, you have the legal and moral right to destroy it and recreate a government in your image. That is not a concept that is universal. That is a uniquely American cultural tradition. So finally, with like the Fourth Amendment, which is my favorite, which is just limited government, basically balance of power. Like the government has to abide by its own rules. If you look at Latin and Central America, it's pretty obvious that even if they write these things into their constitution, they don't hold it as strong as we do. Now, maybe there's material reasons for why they don't do that, but there's a shitload of corruption, shitload of failed states, shitload of people who are looking to the government as the end-all, be-all solution to their problems. And that's just not American culture, or at least it's not until we let people in and they change the culture. So that's what I would be for preserving. And then just to address UD's point about what is Title 42, what is our rhetoric, what does our stances have to do with the way that people interact with us? We already know for a fact, just talking to Nate, Tiberius's immigration lawyer or whatever, we already know for a fact that what Biden says on camera, on TV, is translated by people in Central and South American places to be like the stated policy. And coyotes and people who are immigrating are basically, I don't want to say taking advantage, but they're using the system to their benefit, where they will have unaccompanied minors come here because they know they're going to get some level of preferential treatment. They get into the country, then they start contributing economically. They become dreamers. They become DACA. They have citizens of their own, like citizen kids of their own if they marry an American national. And then that helps them bring in more people into the country. So that would be my logical extension of what that rhetoric and policy does.
Okay. We're having infamous Friday glitch twitches, so we're recording and it's running through its Streamlabs. Wanted to see if chat's getting all this. If not, I'm gonna temporarily close it, open it back up just to capture all this fully.
I've been checking the stream. I haven't had anything for about 10 minutes, but I am recording everything. So if you want to just rerun it, you're good to go.
They evidently can hear it through Discord, but it's some kind of thing.
Could I give
What I'm
like
gonna
like an intro to my thoughts on this topic at some point?
Yes, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
let me do this.
I was like, wait a second.
Let me end this and start it back up again. You guys sit tight.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we can get the chat back.
I've also got everything captured with my beautiful layout of perfectly manicured video feeds of everybody.
Right, so we don't miss anything. I think the VOD saved as well. So
it looks nice.
What great points too. What go figure? We get a heavy duty panel and this happens.
Right.
Okay. We're trying to get it.
Murphy's Law.
Appears to be.
Got to boost Socratease' viewership.
Yeah, I've been kind of away for a bit, not really streaming that regularly, and lost pretty much.
It
everybody.
hurts. It hurts a lot.
Oh man, I didn't quite understand when I used to just watch streamers and didn't stream. Now I understand.
Okay. Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you can.
So much lag. Right.
Worst case scenario, I will literally Dropbox this thing to you, and you can literally replay it tomorrow.
Yeah, we can do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's stuck on some kind of thing, so it crapped out on us. So let's go and pick that back up. That's phenomenal. I hate something that messes up your momentum like that.
It always happens.
This is why I need to be on OBS, by the way, instead of Slops.
It's saying that you're hosting. It's saying that you're hosting someone else.
Yeah.
Maybe you just need to end the host of them. And
no, that happens because it actually kicked itself off stream. So okay. So we're gonna go back and
counterpoints.
Start this back up again. And
I saw you do this in our previous conversation.
Yeah,
are you doing Warhammer? It
seems like OG OBS seems like that's what I've used the whole time. It seems like it's been pretty consistent.
Slobs is made more simply, but then you get issues like this when you try to do too much stuff with it.
Hey, counterpoints. I saw you do this in our last conversation. Are you doing Warhammer? Are these Warhammer?
Yes, I am.
I knew it.
I knew it. Been going all week. Lots of trouble getting connected for a long time, and everybody. Yeah. What's that?
This is something that I stole from my English forebears. Okay, this is English traditional. This is an English tradition to be a fucking geek who paints fucking tiny plastic men.
Remember, it's not cultural appropriation if you're appropriating your own people.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Irish
for the Queen, for Corn, for Nurgle.
He's co-opting.
I have a really good friend who's into Warhammer.
I will replace the Anglos.
I have a good friend who
You don't have
who's
enough
really
red hair to be
into
Irish.
Anglos will not replace us.
Yeah, I've got a good
Look,
friend
look,
who's into
that's the-
Warhammer.
yeah.
Dude, my beard is redder than yours. Come on.
Doesn't mean anything. We could both be Celts.
Fair enough.
He's
Sure,
got
a
Difficult
bunch
auburn
of
hair.
degenerate,
Reddish.
potato-eating immigrant fucking
It's
Celts.
Irishy.
Oh,
They're
man.
coming here trying to boil all of our food. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we're
man.
gonna try
It's
this
un-American.
again.
I don't know. Potatoes are good.
Yeah, boil
It's
your
gotta be
potatoes
boiled in
and
oil,
fry your
not
hot
water.
dogs.
Oh, well,
Oof.
there's where we
So
disagree.
onions, and more onions. Got it. Whoever put mushrooms in oil, they need help. I'm just saying.
Mushrooms and oil. It's got to be
Yeah.
butter, man. Well,
Yeah,
no,
butter.
Here's the thing. It's got to be fried most of the time in oil, and then you finish with butter. It's just
There you go.
too.
That'll work.
Yeah.
That'll work. Hey, she's on. There we go.
We got it.
She's up again, so
Alright.
that's
Hey.
promising.
That's step first.
All
That's
right.
step one.
Step 1 complete.
Poor
Commencing
chat.
phase
They're like,
2.
what? We threw biddies on this. I'm like, buy me a new rig. Yeah. Buy me a new rig. No. Actually, get me in a place where I have actual electricity.
They're bribing to bring us the stream back
I-
on.
All right, so
I am
I
actually
did
mining
not know
crypto
what's
as well while we're doing this.
Really?
just telling you how much-
I can't even run Tarkov while they're running
So-
like Discord. No,
before we formally get booted back up, is it Socrates and then me next?
Yeah,
For
Socrates
intro.
yeah, I think
didn't give his
that's-
intro. He accidentally
Yeah.
skipped.
We just left
No.
Socrates, you know.
Didn't get
Sorry.
his intro. So,
It's okay.
Step-
and I
Or
don't
at least
know how to
his
outro
opening
because
thoughts. is what I
Message
should say.
message received loud and clear. Understood.
Yeah.
It's called a blind streamer. I'm actually going by the sound of your voices. So, okay. So hopefully our chat will find us again. We're back. This had better stay up. All right, Socrates, please give us your intro.
All right. Well, it's not so bad because a lot of the people who've gone have already said a lot of the things I was going to say. Tiberius talked about some of the causes for the recent. I think it's okay to call it a surge. It's kind of a politicized term, but there's like a 30% increase over what we would expect for this time of year. It was probably caused by COVID that held up people doing this in the first place. There's like a 60% increase in unaccompanied minors, that's the slightly notable thing. And that I don't know. I don't know if that's like totally accounted for by the changes in policy that relate to that specifically. And Cypher talked about some of the causes of a lot of the immigration that's occurring, which is basically unstable homes, which some of that has been caused by U.S. policy, and certainly isn't being helped by U.S. policy. I really liked Counterpoints' intro because he threw like a lot on the table there. There's a ton to work with. When it comes to I mean, totally agree about the economic stuff. Sounds like we're on the same page, so I'm glad that we don't have to have that conversation. We can go to some of the other stuff, and not to speak for everybody, but yeah, totally agree with that. When it comes to the cultural issues, I think that's a really interesting thing to discuss when we talk about like so more universal than are having specific values, because those values are things that we're actively not peacefully disagreeing on. We're not currently peacefully disagreeing on abortion. We're not currently peacefully disagreeing on whether our election was fair. We're not currently peacefully disagreeing on a lot of things. There's a lot of violence within the current population over these kind of political issues. There are different notions that people in other countries on average compared to the US on average have. Like we can recognize that fact, but we need to investigate much deeper before we can put any kind of notion that there's like an incompatibility there, especially of course when it comes to unaccompanied minors who, unless we believe that there's like a South or Central American genetics that leads to not believing in republicanism, then it seems like minors who grew up here will probably have a lot of the ideas that other Americans have who grew up here. So specifically the minors seems like that's probably the least of an issue. It seems like a lot of immigrants who come in from South and Central America are more conservative, which I agree that's an issue. We will have to get them a little bit more woke. I agree with Connor there. That's a good point. They're a little bit more religious, a little more conservative. But I didn't quite understand the thing about like the Second Amendment, how like South and Central Americans don't have a concept of like armed rebellion against the government. I don't really know what to make of that. Like
Why?
when was the sorry?
Why?
I mean, didn't Cuba have like a revolution more recently than we did?
Sure. And what's their current gun control?
What's their current gun control? I actually don't know.
Let's not turn this into a gun debate.
So sorry, you go ahead.
But yeah, I mean that's an interesting point. But that's also like there's conversations in the U.S. that people who are who call themselves liberals and believe in liberal democracy are talking about amending the Constitution to change the Second Amendment. So
yeah, they're fucking evil and stupid in my book.
I mean, yeah. So that's the question. Is like, should we deport liberals?
Yes.
Okay. It sounds like we're making progress. Well, I've got my thoughts on the table. I don't want to make this, totally monopolize and make this back and forth. But I'm very, very interested in discussing that. But I'll pass that off to Ty.
Can I
take it back?
Oh, please.
With-
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I mentioned his name many times by specifically. So, yeah.
No, I just wanted to address this very specifically because I get the same shit when I talk about like theocrats. So for instance, if I was worried about South and Central, I'm infinitely less worried about South and Central American immigration than I am immigration from the Middle East and North Africa.
Okay, yeah.
But, well, and hold on, let me explain because everybody can hate me in a second.
Oh no, that was actually like a genuine understanding. That wasn't.
Yeah. This is kind of like an analogous point. So basically, when I go against or I say that we need to be careful with Central and South American immigration, I talk about like American republicanism, liberal democracy, the rule of law, corruption, like all that kind of shit. These are the things that I'm not interested. I'm not interested in perpetuating those negative tropes in my society, and I think they need to be defended within our own society. That's what I talk about. And it's a good meme that, like, hey, Democrats are anti-gun. Do you want to deport them? It's like, if I could, I would. Like, fuck them, get out of here. But then in the opposite
Wait, but they're American citizens.
Yeah, I know. That's why I can't. So in the opposite vein, people from the Middle East and North Africa, they're fucking, some of them are theocrats. As a matter of fact, if you look at a decent chunk of Pew Research polls, the popularity of theocracy and the popularity of cultural tropes such as suicide bombing are a lot more popular in the Middle East and North Africa and Central Asia than they are here. So they say, oh, well, we have white Christian terrorists. We have white Christian, theocrats. Would you want to deport them? And the answer is yes. If I could, I would. I can't. So basically, like, I don't actually want to deport anybody. These are our citizens. They are our problem now. But just because they're our problem doesn't make them not a problem. And then to say, oh, well, we have problems here, so why don't you import more of the same problem from another culture? It's like, why? Why would I? Like, I already have these assholes to deal with. Why would I import more assholes? And with that, I yield.
I'll take this up if I can.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's some points I want to back. Yeah, there's some points I want to back up Connor with. There's some points I might like go the other direction with. If anyone wants to have the economic conversation, I can have it. I think it's literally like net zero in my overall interpretation of it. American culture, it's really flexible. Like any culture tends to change and morph over time, not only with like technological and social trends, but also when you have a country that is pro-immigration, or at least that does have immigration, like the United States or Canada or whatever, is that there's a push and a tug between assimilation and multiculturalism that is going to shift the culture in different ways. How many of you know what? I completely lost the word of this. It's a holiday in Texas. I can't think of what it is, but no one else supports or no one else does it yet. Juneteenth is what I was talking about, or was what I was thinking of.
Other places have Juneteenth. It's just really big in Texas.
Yes, it's just that is actually a growing trend that is coming up from Central America that is growing out throughout the United States as they do this. I don't know why. I don't know why.
Juneteenth,
I think
might be different.
I think you're using the wrong thing. Juneteenth is the celebration of, but it's another Civil War kind of thing where a Mexican contingent fought back. I think it was the French from coming in, or no, it might have been the British. I don't know the exact particulars of it, but I think that might be what you're actually referring to.
I misstepped. I do apologize. I got Juneteenth confused, but I'll actually take Cinco de Mayo. Is that we do see more people celebrating Cinco de Mayo as we do have more immigration from the Central American states. So anyway, I'll table that one since I misstepped on that one. So like, there's a long conversation that goes into here. What are the norms of the society? Those are going to change. That's actually, in my personal opinion, a healthy thing to have like a new group of people come in and kind of just like, hey, is this actually worth having? Is this thing worth keeping? Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Ideals are a big one, but the problem is even before the immigration conversation starts, I've been advocating that the culture war is actually legit. Is that we're having a conversation about the soul of this country. What is the right thing to do? How should we govern ourselves? And that is completely been dialed up to 11. A lot of people will advocate that, Joe Biden or Barack Obama is unethical and horrible. And then they'll say the same thing about Trump, or the other side will say the same thing about Trump. Like we don't agree on what the right thing to do is right now. And until we actually get that sorted out, a lot of these more extraneous conversations are completely up in the air. The big one that actually concerns me more than any other one that is a cultural thing, although it's kind of interrelated, is language. If you look at a lot of countries that have multiple languages there's massive political divides between people who speak different languages, particularly if they are not bilingual and understand the quote unquote the mono language or the main language. We can talk about Quebec, even Scotland, which does speak the same language, has a massive political divide between that and England. I think that's more geographic, but yeah. That is a problem. If people cannot communicate, they tend not to politically identify with each other. And if there is not, if you will, an appropriate assimilation, I do reserve that as a problem. From there on, it just goes into like the resistance and assimilation. Do we think people are assimilating? Do we care, or do we actually want a multicultural state? That is extremely an ethical conversation, which just becomes partisan really quickly. But if we want to go there, we can. As far as my own bias on American culture, I think most of the immigrants that come out of Central America are some of the hardest working, awesome, conservative pieces of awesome. I can't put this into words. I think they're better Americans than most Americans are, just bar none. And they actually, I deal with the idea of American dream and the land of opportunity. They take it more seriously than natural born citizens. So yeah. And then as far as Trump and Biden, I can make this is the official stuff I can go down. We haven't seen a lot of change yet. I think that's a priorities list. Number one has been COVID. Obviously, Biden's been going after that. And number two is that is any foreign relations thing that I've seen Biden actually hammer on. It's U.S.-China relations, which I just did a massive Cold War episode on. So the person to watch is Alejandro Mayorkas. He is now the current Secretary of Homeland Security. He is a Cuban American. He is what most people would absolutely consider open borders. I'm not going to talk about what that actually means, but I'll say that we have people that are being lined up that are very, very pro-immigration, that have openly said they support DACA, they support pathway to citizenship, that kind of thing. That is what I do expect the Biden administration to go down. I just don't expect it till the end of the year. I'm done.
Could I say just one sentence that I meant to say in my opening,
sure.
Which is that one huge thing that I agreed with Connor on, which is that we need to have governmental programs that assist in assimilation. That this is like one thing that went wrong in France with like a lot of the Muslim population is they just didn't have a lot of opportunities, didn't have like a lot of ways to connect into the society, and felt very excluded. And this is the cause of like a lot of the issues and kind of lack of integration. I would say integration more than assimilation, because I don't necessarily want people to literally melt into one giant Zorb or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah. We don't really like that word assimilation, do we?
Hmm.
From a cultural perspective, a cultural
Mhm.
issue dealing with integration and people deserving to be here, et cetera, cultural capital. If ADT and Cypher can speak to that,
I think
ideas
ADT should
of
go first.
yeah, please.
Sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
mean to cut you off. I'm so sorry about that. My mic
Oh,
was
no,
off
no.
earlier.
No, it's all good. Open borders? Who's talking about open borders? That's kind of strange considering that there has been absolutely no real legislation or legislature proposing anything remotely close to open borders. Second of all, I don't know why or where we did the shift to like immigration like to the Middle East. I'm pretty sure we were talking about like immigration from like the southern border, because that's where the surge is happening, and I believe that that's where we're talking about.
Mhm.
So I don't know where
Mhm.
that talking point came from. And somebody mentioned, either Counterpoints or Tiberius mentioned, about like how these Central and South American immigrants are one of the hardest working people and things like that. Yes, that is very true. So where is the concern in terms of like the whole quote unquote cultural argument? I don't see where the cause of concern would be there. So yeah, those are just like the points that I wanted to address.
Okay.
Mhm.
Should
I'll
I
give you
address that directly, or should I let CSP jump in?
let me give the historical context for that before Cypher. With the situation with the Chinese Exclusion Act, although the Chinese workers, who are indisputably among the hardest working people in the world, were 0.0002 of the total working population in their areas. However, the white workers, especially in California, insisted that 0.0002 were stealing all of their jobs. Every time it comes down to your ability to work, including freed African slaves, the working class in America has said, "You're stealing our jobs, go home," every single time. So maybe that should be challenged. And actually, maybe you guys can tell me why is that, after Cypher gives his retort.
Sure. The only thing that I wanted to mention that Socratease brought up is how Europe doesn't have a good track record of integrating. And in my opinion, and I studied this while I was in college many moons ago, is that Europe on the whole tends to be very much more ethnic nationalist, even though they don't want to admit it. And so when immigrants come into work, either in the UK or Germany or Scandinavia or France, they ultimately, well, France, not so much. There's a different issue with that. But they ultimately expect those people to return to their home countries after the work that they did is done. Even Angela Merkel said that eventually the Syrian refugees that have settled into Germany will eventually go home. I want to say that was 2014 or 2015 that she's on record saying that. And so, I mean, it wasn't until 2000. I feel like I'm overpowering my mic. Give me 1 second. So there it goes. So even though like it wasn't until 2000 that Turkish Germans were allowed to get citizenship, and the way they can get citizenship is that once you turn 18, you have, I want to say, a year to make a decision if you're going to give up your Turkish Turkish citizenship and take German citizenship.
Jeez.
And so they don't have like, it's just this whole mess, and that's why Erdogan goes to Germany to campaign because of the large Turkish immigrant population that hasn't been allowed to actually assimilate, or whichever term you want to use. So I wanted to make that point very clear.
That situation is decades long, decades old.
Yes. As
Okay.
for,
Go ahead.
I was just wanted. So you wanted to have like kind of our opinions about why this is the case for any time
What
in
is it
immigration.
about coming over here and being really, in fact, coming over here to work precisely because you were such a good worker triggers the working class? You're stealing our jobs, and it has done so since the first colony was established here.
Right. So, in my opinion, the primary reason that you see that is there's two reasons. One, it's just rank racism. So people don't, we live in a, for lack of a better term, actually not for lack of a better term, we live in what was designed to be a white supremacist society, benefiting white people above
Yes.
other races and nationalities.
White
How-
men of
how-
good character. Correct. Exactly.
The other point, though, is I'm going to say jealousy. And what it is that if you look at any immigrant populations coming to the United States, even other quote unquote white people before they were made white, anytime they do better or they start to grow, to come up and actually assert themselves and become wealthy or middle class or what have you, is that other people are like, well, they got it and I don't have it now. So obviously they're a problem. They're preventing me from doing this because it's a zero-sum game thinking of that. So I think those are two primary reasons.
Chat would like to stay on this. From across the pond, why are people afraid that immigrant workers would lead to them being unable to work? Is this really more complicated than, quote, economic anxiety, unquote?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not just economic anxiety, it's social anxiety, it's tribalism. We love it when there's a social group that's beneath us. We love it when there's somebody that we can make fun of. We love it when somebody sounds weird or has a weird cultural custom, or we can alienate them, or we can shit on them. Yeah, we fucking love it. Because basically you have a social pecking order that even if you're not at the top of, you're not at the bottom of it either. And that, yeah, human beings fucking love that shit. So it's not just, oh, this dude, my dad is a welder and this, Peruvian guy came here and he's brown, so I don't like him. And also he stole my dad's job. Now my dad has to work for $15 an hour instead of $50 an hour because there's too many Peruvian welders. It's this new guy has a funny fucking accent and he's on the exterior of the culture and I'm on the interior of it. So I'm socially more valuable than he is. Human beings love that shit.
Yeah, I have two responses. One to that, and one that isn't exactly like an answer to that question, but provides like a little bit of historical context. So one is that I agree with Connor. Sorry, I always feel like, should I call you Counter Connor? I don't know what's more.
Connor is my name. Counter is my YouTube channel. You can pick one.
I like Connor, so I'll go with Connor. So yes, so I agree that that's a thing that we do. I'm skeptical of this idea that this is fully an innate human thing, that this is just the way it is, because there have been centuries of marketing exactly that specific anxiety of these immigrants are coming to take your jobs, these newly freed slaves are coming to take your jobs, at least you're not one of them. When something has been marketed, I get skeptical if it's just a reflexive human thing. And when it's been marketed for centuries, I get skeptical if that's just a human thing. And the one other thing I wanted to say was that when it comes down to why is it that we exploit every new immigrant group that comes in, we exploit them for a long period of time. We have legislation that makes it impractical or impossible for them to have like real kind of family life and to integrate for some amount of time. And then eventually we say, okay, you've kind of paid your dues. Now you can be part of society. And we're obviously continuing that now with most recent immigration. It actually extends further back than just immigration, but it extends to the founding. When the capitalist classes in America, so surprise, it's capitalism, the capitalist classes in America had a problem, which is that people could come over from England and they could buy land and they could start creating all the things they needed, and they didn't have a lot of incentives to work for very cheap in factories, whatever, doing agricultural labor for someone else. So the solution to this was to make land arbitrarily very expensive, so that new colonists who came had to work for decades for someone else before they could afford land so they could be self-sufficient. So this is something that extends not just to waves of immigration, but all the way back to the original colonies. This is something that is just a 0-day principle in our country, that you come here, you get exploited for couple generations, and then maybe you get to become people. This is how our country has always functioned.
It's a hazing ritual.
It's a hazing ritual, exactly.
It's a probationary period from hell. So originally, the colonists were free were free labor, meant to work in collectives. This was all fine and good until the colonists themselves said, "I can't afford servants. I can't afford them. The Germans are costing too much. The UK, they're asking for way too much. They want us to pay them, and we don't even own our own land." And that was the justification for America getting into chattel slavery. And so once all the white people were given their flag to wave, and then we have to restrict all these incredibly hardworking Africans who famously could not find employment in the factories either once they were freed. And so you had the free men of colors, a sort of union, workers association. When all the other immigrants came over for their right to work, for their freedom, this idea almost like a union where the cooperative, if you will, collective in this nation, were the first to launch and the most violent and the most vociferous in racial attacks and assaults, and especially oppressing women as well, to preserve their occupational rights. So is it that the working class in this country is the one keeping the racism and discrimination going?
Nah, okay, so I'm gonna be essentialist in this. I think this is part of human nature. Drew, who's a conservative aspiring psychologist on Twitch, brings up the study all the time whenever we talk about tribalism, that basically it can be as arbitrary as people flipping a coin. So basically, like, you can flip a coin, you're now in the heads group, you're now in the tails group, and then you'll give people two options. One, you can walk away with like $12, and the other people will walk away with $11. Or you can walk away with $9, and they'll walk away with $3. Which one of these options is preferable? And I think it was like almost overwhelmingly, people will pick the option in which they have less money in their pocket, but they screwed over the other group harder. Just on it's there's no reason for it except for like competitive subconscious tribalism. It's literally controlled for like race and gender and like all that kind of stuff. So there's no other excuse except for just like petty human tribalism. If you're doing worse than me, then that means that I'm doing really well. And humans are dumb like that.
And so it almost sounds as if racism is a human innate approach.
Tribalism is. I hope we can like socially evolve past racism, but I think basically my goal is not to eliminate xenophobia completely from humanity. My goal is to get humans to identify as a collective and for us to be xenophobic towards aliens.
Yeah, because that never ends well for us, does it? We're like, the real aliens do not pick pineapples, okay? They
gotta get those holograms going.
Right. Depends on the aliens. If they're like peace-loving grays who want to show us how to like space colonize, that's cool. But if they're like 20-foot tall Starship Troopers bugs, then I'm okay with a little bit of xenophobia.
Well, but the lizard
Ender's
men are
Game this
among
shit.
us.
Yeah.
QAnon has taught us the lizard men are among us. It's too
Yeah.
late.
Connor,
True.
is this
The ones on the surface
Oh,
are
no.
okay. It's the ones in the center of the earth I don't like.
Yeah.
Connor, is this the point where I get the feeling that you're
Wait,
playing the Great Crusade?
There's
I'm
no
doing
center
what?
of the Earth. The Earth
You're
is not
play-
round. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh.
You're
Yes,
playing
I'm working
the dark
up to
side of the
making
earth.
Warhammer 40,000 a reality. Yes, that's part
Fair
of my
enough.
big.
Okay,
That's
good.
part of my big plan
For the Emperor.
for
I
the
have-
Emperor.
Somebody in Warhammer you would love to work with, I hope. But so to push on a bit, immigration policy is dictated. What do you think? More from the federal government's actual concerns, or from the pressure that working class people, perhaps upper class people who want segregation? Is it coming really?
They don't
from
want
the citizens?
segregation. The upper class.
We want our
So-
elite communities, and we don't want them here. The us's, right? The ones who have the elite status.
They
want
don't care
it
about
in them.
that. They don't care about that
Um,
because they can live in segregated communities. They can get behind a gate. They don't give a shit about immigration at all.
How do all of you feel about that? Where's that pressure? Where's that push coming from? Is it down from the federal government for security concerns, or is it coming up
Both.
from perhaps lobbying groups or
Both.
other communities?
Just definitively both. You're going to have any nation state is going to want to look after its own security, and when you've got 100,000 people crossing a 2,000-mile wall border, that is a massive security threat any way you look at it. It doesn't even matter if literally every single one of them is going across the border with flowers. Is that you don't know what they're doing, you don't know why they're doing it. You want to keep tabs on them. That's just the way that nation states work. If you don't like nation states, that's a whole other conversation entirely. Now, the other side of this is that people who feel like that they are economically disadvantaged are going to have a problem with immigration. Whether it is or whatever it is not. I'm going to say this is actually a net neutral kind of thing, because there's benefits to having immigration economically. There's massive deficits to it as well. But the long and the short here is that the reason why you see just rampant xenophobia crank up is that because of the Industrial Revolutions, there's always somebody on the chopping block that lost their job 10 years ago that never found anything to replace it. The list goes on. But that general economic disconcern drives immense aminosity that is very much fueled by demagoguery and nonsense. This is literally how you get your Hitlers. Anytime that people basically lose their wallet, their morals go right behind it. And at that point, we're off to the races.
Oh boy. In a capitalist economy, especially.
In any
Yeah.
economy.
I was about to
Well-
show me the socialist society that is functioning well without xenophobia.
Right. Right. Any
I don't-
economy, but especially.
Gotcha there.
So the pushes and the pulls seem to be all pointing in they're not opposing. We used to have here in this nation migratory labor, transhumans is what they call it. Temporary work visas, for instance, in Mexico. Why not reinstate this temporary work program? Why not say, if you've done an outstanding job, there's no reason we have, should you want to apply, to deny you citizenship? Go ahead, Cypher.
I
Can
just
finally see you
wondered-
guys now. Go ahead. Yeah, hold your hand up for me and I'll catch you. Sorry.
I would like to get a difficult truth. I'm sorry, I'm just bad with
Yeah.
names. I have to keep going. Yeah, a difficult truth. Opinion on
ADT.
some of
We
the
call
stuff
him
that
ADT.
we've been discussing, because I think he's tried to break in a couple of times, but it's kind of, I don't know if he's low for anybody else, but he's kind of low for me. So I just want to make sure
It
that we're
is.
not
Oh,
missing.
I'm having
missing
trouble
things.
hearing it too. Yeah, hold your paw up, okay? So I can
okay.
see.
Can you hear me okay?
Correct. I can hear you perfectly now. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay, cool. To your question, I think that, yeah, we should allow or make a path to citizenship when it comes to these immigrants, because, well, yeah, they do contribute to they do contribute. So of course we should present a pathway to citizenship, as you said, yeah. And I do think that a lot of it does boil down to what you were saying earlier, universal discourse. It's just like, I just don't like these people, you know, because it doesn't make any sense. And I think Socratease also made a good point. That is the type of stuff that's sometimes fabricated. You have your, the media plays a bit of it too. You have your Tucker, immigrants make this country dirty, Carlson.
Yeah, got you, Connor.
Yeah, so you have those talking points that are being injected make you scared, or to make you, or to create that divide between us and them.
Mm-hmm. Connor?
So this plays actually into a question that ADT asked a while ago. What's the concern? What is the concern with people from other countries? What is it, and kind of like you just said, oh, this is all fabricated or whatever. I like to think of myself as, prejudiced or bigoted or shitty or an asshole, not because I don't have enough information, but probably because I have too much information. So my subconscious biases are rooted in reality, but I have emotional reactions to them that might not be accurate or proportionate. So for instance, like jihadist terrorism or whatever, I'm pretty sure like a fucking coconut has a higher chance of killing me than jihadist terrorism. That doesn't mean that my hometown wasn't fucking bombed. Boston was fucking bombed, and what I think the girl was like 8 years old or something like that. She got killed. She got killed. Half a dozen people got maimed. I live in Central Florida. 20 minutes from my house is a gay nightclub called Pulse, in which 50 people were slaughtered by a jihadist terrorist. So just because Central Florida, Orlando, has a population of 2 million, we could have a Pulse nightclub every single year, and the population of Orlando would still perpetuate and go on. But just because that's true doesn't mean that it's not horrible, horrifying, psychologically horrifying, anything like that. Also, specifically when it comes to Central America or South America, they like Mexico. So I want to say in 2007, Mexico had more homicides per capita, and I want to say more homicides in real numbers than Iraq while we were at war in Iraq. Mexico was a larger war zone, and on top of that, people like cops, CSI, judges, mayors, all that kind of stuff are getting kidnapped out of their houses, executed, killed, chopped up, thrown in barrels, melted with acid, all that kind of shit. So to say, like, oh, well, we don't know what everybody's so scared of. Well, you know what I'm scared of? I'm scared of drug cartels running drugs into my community, using it to finance their operations. Going back to Mexico or Belize or Burma or, wherever the fuck they're from, funding death camps that compete with the actual legitimate government, buying off paid officials, and then when paid officials don't go along with the program, them sneaking into their houses and executing them. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other options to do. We can change our foreign policy. We could do security aid. We could improve this, improve that. But at the same time, when you're saying there's no fucking problem, I don't know. I lived in Southern California, 30 miles south from where I was. Maybe not 30 miles. 100 miles south from where I was El Pozolero, the soup guy, the guy who killed like 300 people and melted them in plastic barrels. So just to pretend like this is just like, oh, I have no idea. Like, what are we even talking about? It's like, nah, there's real shit going on.
Okay. One of the challenges to that, unless somebody has a paw up, and especially in human rights, is that kind of thing occurs inside this country as well.
That's more horrifying.
Cartel
AGT's got his hand up as well, FYI.
Okay, good. Cartel people generally aren't going to risk their industry by crossing a border where they could be apprehended and trying to set up shop elsewhere. It's too risky, and they have too much at stake to do it. So they're going to operate in their backyards. All right. Coyoteros, on the other hand, exploiting refugees, 68 million, especially Guatemala and Mayan, shoving them into Mexico and saying, yo, you can go over there to the border to the Americas. We're going to take all your papers. You might get raped, you might get died, you might get disappeared. We might like your little daughter is so cute, isn't she? Your wife, kiss her goodbye, ga. And then you have this massive influx. You have this kind of push factor also going on. None of that is cartel, except that the soldiers, the coyoteros, are being employed by the cartels just to make money off of them. They do not care where they end up. They have no care for how they end up. Same as in Africa. ADT.
Yeah, you're exactly correct. Universal discourse. And like, second of all, what does Mexico's murder rate have to do with anything? Seems like a huge non sequitur, completely irrelevant. Second of all,
if the people who are coming from the place where they're doing the murdering are coming to our country, how is that a non sequitur?
Because you're assuming that all those people would be murderers.
What?
you would be assuming, okay, so like you're basically saying Mexico has a very high murder rate or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, so does Detroit. Like I don't understand what that has to do with anything.
By a
Second
factor of 11.
And second of all, that is the implication that the people coming here are all murderers, which is kind of weird.
True.
Yeah,
Wait,
that's basically.
Hold up. Hold up. No. We got to nail this down because this is really frustrating.
Let's take
So-
all the input first before we battle it out. It is there are facts, and then there are the consequences of realities. So think about that, and then anyone else have a paw up on this? Because I remember
I've-
that 2007
yeah.
incident and when the gang wars erupted in the resort, and it affected border policy instantly. And I lived on the border when it happened, so I saw what happened. Anyway, go ahead, Socrates.
Was it
Yeah.
finished with his point though?
Mhm.
Yeah, ADT, have you finished with your
Oh,
point?
yeah.
Would you like to say more?
Yeah.
You
So
have. Okay.
yeah. So basically,
ahead.
I don't think that that's relevant in the sense of like the people that are here or the people that are showing up at the border. We do have processes for these things, and I also think that like shoot, I got lost my train of thought. So yeah, I don't really think that that's these anecdotes, these incidents that happened, which are horrifying. I'm not sure they bear out like statistically. And again, we're talking about like the Central and South America crisis that's happening right now, not Islamic jihadists. I don't know like
why? Okay, hold up. UD, I'm sorry, I got to jump in. Why? What is this art like? Okay, I'm going to try to nail you down on one variable. We are talking about immigration.
Correct.
Immigration includes people coming into this country. People coming to this country from all over the fucking place. Some of them come in through the south and central border. A lot of people, as a matter of fact, as Adam fucking ruins everything or whatever fucking said, a shitload of people are visa overstays who fly into this country and then stay over their visa. Why are we making this, like, I'm asking you, ADT, very specifically, why are you making this arbitrary line between Middle Eastern and North African immigration and Central American and South American immigration? Why does it matter where people come from if I have cultural objections to both cultures?
Because what I thought the conversation was about the recent immigration surge. But if you want to expand it, then sure. Again, the statistics.
Okay, but
don't
is there a moral? Okay, so for instance, like if you didn't prepare, you didn't like research like fucking Middle East and North African immigration trends or jihadism or whatever, that makes sense because you came in with a preparation in mind for what we were going to talk about, and now we're talking about something different.
Correct.
But rather than preparation, I'm asking you very specifically, what is the moral difference between me not liking people coming from Central and South America and maybe having a different moral value on the value of the lives of animals? So, for instance, I was a law enforcement officer. We would find dog fighting rings. We would find pit bulls that were injected with steroids and made to fight to the death. I find that morally abhorrent. That is not part of my culture. I find it fucking disgusting. If somebody's going to bring that to my fucking country, I think they should be arrested and locked up. Same way that I morally object to somebody basically saying, oh, well, because you're a different religion than me, you're actually lower on the moral totem pole, therefore I don't value you as much, and it's actually morally acceptable for me to go ahead and kill you because you're not part of my religious group. If I have moral objections to both of those worldviews, and I want neither one of those people imported to my country, what is the moral difference that you're objecting to?
Okay.
And
Let me do.
I would like to
do
jump
it.
in on that as well.
Yeah, I've seen Socrates and ADT, but let me do
Mhm.
it the way we do it, which is we take that question. This is where there is a shift in his perspective that he would like everyone to consider. It says ADT is simply reminding us of the context is stated, was specifically the U.S.-Mexico border. So we have that, and then we have this other cultural relativism. What is the moral difference? If I don't want either culture in my country, is there a moral difference between the two? We take that, we set that over here, and then we go ahead and finish out what we want to say here with our perspectives to make sure that we have time to explore this, because Connor is bringing us a cultural perspective, a very, very purist cultural perspective. So we take that side aside. And Socrates, was that you with your hand up? And Tiberius,
Yeah.
I need to hear from you.
I'll close it out, or I'll try to take the end of the cycle.
Mhm.
Okay. Socrates?
Yeah, so I first wanted to acknowledge off the bat like a really important point that Connor made with regards to a fallacy in reasoning that I'm definitely prone to and want to be careful not to make, which is making an argument along the lines of, well, we've got Chirac, so there's no issue like taking people in who may have some of the issues that are here at home, because we already have those issues here at home, so it doesn't matter taking people in. If it's an issue at home, and people who are immigrating will have this issue at a larger proportion than on average here, then it's not. Then that's could be like a net negative to bring people in. I do want to acknowledge that would be a flaw in reasoning to say that just because we have a problem here already, then it doesn't matter if we bring people in with that problem or accept people in with that problem. I agree that's a very, and I've heard people make arguments to that effect, which isn't good. When it comes to the question of people immigrating from either immigrating from or refugees from Mexico or from Central America, from Guatemala, I read that article on a lot of Mayans coming in and watched some videos on that. I think there's a distinction that you could make between culture and like a situation. So people who are fleeing cartel violence in Mexico, to say that they bring a culture of cartel violence seems like a claim that would need to be justified in some way, which is distinct from saying, if you come from Saudi Arabia, maybe you have like cultural values about like women driving or something that could be kind of like not progressive. That I think there's a distinction to make there between saying like you come from a place that has violence and you're fleeing the violence, therefore like it seems reasonable to assume that like you may have like a culture for violence. That seems like a claim that would require justification, and I don't know just enough about that to make that one way or another myself, but that just seems like something worth mentioning, kind of that distinction between bringing in a culture and fleeing violence.
I mean, I have a response, but I don't want to interrupt people.
Yeah, let's have equal voices if we can. And Cypher, once we can see you again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no,
Sorry, I was getting very hot, so I had to open my window up.
Oh, okay. I wish I could say that. No, it's freezing. I'm in the granny blanket. Okay, Cypher. No, we talked a bit. We talked a bit about push-pull and the cultural relativism and the morality of culture has loomed. And if everyone wants to expand this conversation to immigration in large, do you want to stay with the Mexican border, the specific Biden's policy issue? It's up to you.
Well, personally, I think we should stick. I understand Connor's point with this, but I think we should stick to the southern border specifically because it's a unique set of conditions that causes it. So with those unique set of conditions, it requires different answers to it, and it's also a completely different culture than what Connor was bringing up with Islamic countries and the citizens thereof. So I don't think that we should expand it because of that.
Okay. Can I make a counter argument?
Well,
sure. As long as everybody has their, let's see if we can get a consensus on it, or else go for it. Choose.
The only other thing that I wanted to say was that, from at least in my opinion, from a cultural perspective, from a core values cultural perspective, there isn't that much difference between South and Central America and the United States, as there might be from other places in the world. While you can say there's different values caused by Catholicism, it's still Christianity. While you can say that there's different values because of the indigenous populations that have existed in South and Central America that are somewhat distinct from the indigenous populations that exist in the United States. They still share various cultural values, and they still have a colonial history with Europe colonizing South and Central America. They have their own history with slavery. They have their own history with rebellions against a foreign power, and this sort of thing. And there's a lot of overlap here with those values, even talking Enlightenment values. So I don't think that while on a core cultural level there is much of a difference. So I don't really think that Connor's point about the cultural issues is as relevant as he would like to make it out to be. What I think is more relevant is the economic situations that created the crime and disparity and the terrorism that exists in Central and South America with the cartels. So I just wanted to make that point clear. And I also don't. Well, I just one slight little more thing.
Sure.
I wanted to. No, it's okay. I just wanted to piggyback off of Socrates' point. Is that I too don't think that it's the same people fleeing violence are going to be the same ones that bringing it. Specifically, but from a different angle. Specifically, people aren't going to leave their own power centers to try to set up power centers that have a more not centralized, but a stronger state than staying within their home countries and where they have that kind of level of power and control over entire neighborhoods, blocks, and that sort of thing. So I don't think it's going to be the same people that are coming across. Is there going to be some people that are coming across that are criminals? Yes. We have that from everywhere. America's a big country. It's rich. People can make money here by breaking the law. They're going to be here. So that was my last point.
Okay. And Tiberius, who hadn't gotten the tail of that round, and Socrates.
All right, gotcha. As far as the culture thing, I feel like that conversation, or at least where I want to take it, went pretty much off the rails. Although I definitely saw where Connor was wanting to go with it, which is basically to kind of like turn it up to 11. As far as me, if I'm going to like reground the cultural part of the conversation with the US Mexico, which actually is more US Central America, is that I addressed the language one there earlier. If you can't talk, it's a really weird way to operate. And then I can go down, like, I'll give you the big one. Big one's like the cultural, political norms that we see is that the United States is largely built out as conservative and liberal as polar ideologies. The people that come up from Central America are largely economically liberal and socially conservative. Where do they belong? Democrats? Republicans? Do they need a new party? This fundamentally changes not only the political power calculus of how our institutions are built out, it fundamentally changes how we have to operate, because we have to bring in this whole system this whole group of people that doesn't fit into the system. Is it a bad thing? I don't necessarily think it is. In fact, I think the Republican Party is going to go that way, and I'm okay with that. But it does mean that there is fundamental changes in how we operate, which means it's pain and strife and all that wonderful stuff that we have to deal with aside. Getting to like the logistical problems, which I actually agree, like the economics are probably actually more important here, just as a net give, is that are the people coming broke? Are they educated? Are they asylum seekers, or or do they have a PhD and they're coming in on H-1B? These matter. Why they're coming here is as important as why they're showing up at all. Or why they would come here instead of elsewhere. So the pushes matter, the pulls matter. I don't know why you would want to take anything off the field in this conversation. If we want to limit it, fine. So yeah.
Socrates, thank you for that. Socrates.
Oh, I feel like I've said the main things I need to respond. I think ADT and Connor have probably more pressing things that they want to respond.
ADT, there you are. I see your hand. ADT, in terms of this, what are we putting on the table and taking off?
I mean, I think like if people want to expand it, it's fine. Or if we just want to keep it to the southern border, because I think that Socrates or CSP
hey guys, gotta come right back.
All right, made basically the exact argument that I had in my head. So I guess I'll just cede to CSP. He'll be my spokesperson for the rest of the night. No, I
speak for yourself, man. Please,
no,
please
but
don't let me speak for you.
No, but seriously, what you said was exactly almost what was in my head. I also I also think that like Tiberius, you said earlier that the Irish or the Scottish and the English had differences, but they spoke the same language. But then you said there's differences because we speak different languages. So I'm
Yeah. I kind of did that as a bit of given a compare and contrast. What we see with any state that has primarily two majority languages, particularly if they are not bilingual, example is the Quebecois in Canada, is that they usually have their own system that is split apart. The Quebecois largely have their own political party in Canada. Forgive me, I can't remember what it is, but it literally dominates all but one or two seats in that state almost every single or province every single time. I wanted to compare it to Scotland, that even when they have the same language, their geographic issues will make them want to go the other way. Whether we talked about the Scottish National Party, and I was comparing a contract to say it's not the only thing, but when we do see major linguistic changes, and that's very kind of rare because most people don't want to be in the state of people that you can't talk to, it does lead to a massive political divide. So I actually was kind of steelmanning the opposition argument with the Scottish part of that.
got you. Yeah, I was just a little bit confused because I'm like, I don't know if it not necessarily means that we're gonna be different, because like there's a lot of conservative conservative immigrants who come here, and if they could, they would vote. Would vote Republican, and once they become citizens, a majority of them do. So, I don't know if that's really a division in terms of values. It just seems like a language barrier that often gets solved. They learn the language as a secondary language.
Language usually gets over pretty quickly. Usually, if the primary doesn't speak it, which would be the first generation immigrant, the first generation citizen, which is their kid, usually does, and you'll see translation issues. But most of the time, that's not horrible. In the United States, actually has, if you, as far as I'm aware, like the language assimilation rate for English is extremely high, but it's also might have something to do with the fact that English is now the primary tier 1 language of the planet. More people speak English than any other language.
Yeah.
As far as the political part, I'm not trying to actually take the partisan card here. While there is Hispanic conservatives and Hispanic liberals, is that the majority of them, at least from the data that I've seen, is that they are socially conservative and economically liberal at the same time. And that doesn't actually fit into our party structures the way that we are used to. Now, I have no problem with the political parties changing. In fact,
I've
actually, no, seriously,
I'll disagree with that. I have to disagree with that because African Americans are socially conservative and economically liberal most of the time, and yet they're within the Democratic Party's broader coalition. It's something like, I want to say, I'm not going to say a percentage, but it's a large plurality of African Americans that actually into this.
Yeah, imagine if.
Let's do this. I want to hear everything. If you remember that protocol of interjection, it would help. Also, if you can let them finish, make sure the pulse up, and then jump on it to counter. We're all literally sitting here fascinated. So, yeah. I got that. Okay, Connor. Okay, so let me go back to asking you about what we leave on the table and take off. I personally think that immigration is a global issue, which is my experience, and therefore includes indigenous issues. The cultural issue to me is obviously important the most. I would like that we could at least try to jump to level 11 on this and just blow it out as high up as you guys can go together, because you got big brains, all of you. And I do want to hear the framing heavier on the geopolitical, which is going to be my weak spot. That's what I'm interested to learn about. You've got tons of input from chat. Thank you so much. So let's leave as much on the table as we can, particularly the cultural issue. There are some ugly questions that nobody is seeming to want to ask. Go ahead and do it, but respect each other. So can we go ahead, guys? Your gloves are off. Go ahead for it. Just respect the time, respect each other.
I want to finish the point I was making, because CSP actually nailed this. Is that the African American community there's a lot of them that fall into that. I'm looking at the data right now, and it looks like it's pretty even split between like more progressive and liberal, with the younger African American community and the older being more of what you described. I'm gonna take the hard stance and say the problem with most of the African American community is that they are not in a number that matters, because of largely political locations, and the fact that they've actually been voter suppression is that more often than not they can be simply ignored. And so the political institutions in this country, whether it be the Republican or Democratic parties, doesn't really care too much about them. With the arrival of the Hispanic community, that is changing. And so if I'm actually correct, which this is a whole other conversation entirely, is that when the Republican Party is done with its transformation, it will actually have at least half of the black vote. And I'll crap a brick when it happens, but I see that coming.
Might not
Okay.
be wrong.
Well, okay, so one of the things that I wanted to bring up while CSP was talking was, imagine if Republicans learned how to market themselves to Black people and Hispanic people. Imagine if they actually started talking about economic redistributivism, but couching it within basically like economic redistributivism, but social conservatism. Not only could they steal the Black vote, they could also steal the Hispanic vote. So I think Republicans, if they get their head out of their ass, could actually be really dangerous, really viable politically in the next couple of centuries.
If they could stop being racist, chat says.
Yeah.
No, that's 100% true. I just dropped a
agree with
link
it.
in the chat.
There you
It's a Freakonomics episode that is basically kind of tackles what Tiberius was saying. It's basically if anybody knows the Free State Project, it's a libertarian idea of getting basically every single libertarian to move to New Hampshire and take over the entire state, because New Hampshire's already politically, culturally predisposed to libertarian ideas. That's why they call it the Free State and all this other bullcrap. It's not bullcrap, but you get what I'm saying. There's a similar kind of thing with this that is for Black people, and this Freakonomics episode that I just dropped is pertinent to this entire conversation, tangentially to it. And essentially it's talking about taking over Georgia, more or less. But which is ironic because never mind, I don't want to get into it. I'll talk about that after the cast, but yeah, I just wanted to put that out.
I'll have to say this, speaking of culture and language, a difficult truth. Ito es CSP cipher. Kitotemwak niji. A difficult truth has decided that CSP is his spirit animal.
I will take that with the greatest of compliments. Thank you.
Do you like to hear it
Unironically,
better in English or in Cree?
in Cree.
Take a vote. Who liked it better in Cree than in English?
Cree.
I would Cree, but I'd like to hear it again just so I can try to commit it.
A difficult truth. Ito eh. CSP cipher. Kitotemwak niji.
Thank you. I'll try to get it later.
So
All
we
right.
prefer this in a foreign language.
Well,
So the
hold on.
assimilation of that language would destroy the ability to put that smile on your face. I'm just taking a jab in there. We do have to segue into indigenous issues, but thank you for that, both of you all. And Cree rules because we're the best. Also, so at this point, we all have decided we're very, very happy all of you have sat. Let me just be complimentary again. Remind you, we're hanging on your every word. We're gonna back off and let you go ahead round and round. Would like Tiberius to take charge. We're going to let you go for a little bit of a ways. I want to bring in the border issue, indigenous, and we'll close it out. We've kept you here quite a while. So, Ty, would you take this and would you take the lead for the finale bit?
Oh, are we doing closeouts or are we doing like one last round
not
of like
close
okay,
out.
just
This
one
last part. This last
Sure.
leg.
I know you're wanting to do geopolitics and like get in the factors there. We can do that. I don't know how much you guys know, which is probably going to be the primary limiter here. I can talk about the actual fact. Yeah, okay. I can talk about how Mexico is actually we have a net negative immigration to Mexico for about the last 15 years. People do not immigrate to this country from Mexico, or at least not as Mexican citizens. Most of them are from the Central American states, that is Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Panama. They're largely from there. Why? Those states are remarkably unstable. And even with the Central American Free Trade Agreement, they did not see the economic boon and that the social development that came to Mexico since 1990. Does not mean that the United States relationship with Mexico, as far as like an economic exchange, is the best. While we're seeing improvements in Mexico in both standards of living, quality of care, or quality of life, the other side of this is that there is a massive economic problem, and that's basically what we call the drug war. This is so multifaceted; it goes 1,000 different directions, very, very quickly. I want to be able to provide economic stability to Mexico, and that does mean trading with them. It means basically bringing them into the greater economic union of the United States, because the fact is that if you let Mexico on fire, it's literally like putting your neighbor's house on fire. It's going to burn yours. Just don't let it happen. Does that make costs and benefits? Oh, absolutely. I'm just going to say it's a net positive in that regard. But if we want to debate that, we can. As far as the social issue, I don't care too terribly much. I don't think it's too much of a problem for me, but I have, as a person who lives in the Midwest, I have seen the xenophobia and the racism get cranked up to 11 in my lifetime. I am scared of it, and I do see the physical impact that it's had. I caution people with being so gung-ho on this issue, as far as the blowback effects that come from that. I guess I'll end with this, is that there are plenty of reasons to be pro-immigration and pro-against. The general level that at least comes from me is that part of it's ethical, is that what state do you believe in? What kind of society do you believe in? Whether it's assimilationist, multiculturalist, whatever. And then also is that, do you want to do what Connor was talking about at the beginning? So that you want to allow brain drain, because more often than not, that's the primary people that are going to immigrate out of a country first. They're best and they're brightest because they can access opportunity, and they're going to go to where the opportunity is. I'm proud to be in a country that has that opportunity for them, but I know that back home that has nothing for them. And so, do you let them stay? Do you let them come? I want to focus on that issue if we can, but if you want to go somewhere else, you can. And I'll close it with that.
If I could jump in after Ty, is that cool if I jump in now?
Unless
Please.
there's another paw up.
Yeah, no, I love that introduction to this leg, this large third leg of the conversation. This is something that I've now heard like multiple times, of these kind of simultaneous questions of brain drain, and this idea that it's the most impoverished, possibly the most like violent criminal elements of a society that are coming here. It seems to me that this is maybe something that we should try to nail down. Maybe not in real time, but kind of just in general. Like,
no,
because,
it sounds like a double standard. I 100% get where you're going with this.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't want this to be Schrodinger's immigration debate, right?
Yeah.
So there's a level where there's both, and it depends on like what the institution that we're talking about. If we're talking about like Guatemala right now, I'll largely put it as anyone who was smart enough to have the ability to leave, whether they were educated or wealthy or whatever, they largely did. This country looks like it's on the path to civil war.
Mhm.
And so there's levels where you have that kind of thing, where anyone who is now coming out is just out to get out at that point. Particularly if you want another example, it's Venezuela, although that's on the other side of the Darien Gap, and that's a multifaceted issue on its own.
Mhm.
There's other countries that just don't have a general quality of life that we do here, and so they're going to just pick up and leave. I can talk a bit about Cuba, but more particularly, I can talk about Panama. Panama's not bad. People work on the canal. People live there. They built out a decent nation state for themselves. But we're talking about a place that has 1/8 the standard of living that the United States does. People are just going to naturally say, I'm going to try it somewhere else, because part of it is that we're marketed as the land of opportunity. Whether it's true or not, another conversation, obviously, entirely. But I'll put it this way. At least for them, even if it isn't that much of a land of opportunity, when you can walk across a border and improve your standard of living by a factor of 4, it doesn't matter if you're part of the lower class in that society. They don't care. They just increase their prosperity by a factor of 4. This is actually a huge one that actually gets me in trouble with a lot of leftists, is that the reason I like most of the immigrants that come out from Central America is that they believe this nation is a land of opportunity, because they will literally go from 1,000 to 10,000 in the process of coming here, and they don't have to do anything except work for it. I love that spirit. I really do.
And there was just sorry, just one other point I wanted
Sure.
to make that Ty brought up really well that I really like, which is when we decide about immigration, immigration and refugees, they kind of end up getting linked, and they're related. We're not just deciding who we bring in and the way that those people being here affects what America is, but our decision with respect to those people has a determining effect on what the soul of America is. So our decision in World War II to send back boatfuls of Jews who then ended up in the gas camps, people that, ancestors of mine, that's something that echoes forward of what America is. That's a moral decision that our country makes when we say, even though there's not so many of you, there isn't a measurable economic impact that is detrimental. Maybe it's certainly on a local level, it's like positive. But I don't know. I don't really feel like we can handle you being here. So just go back to your own country and die. Like, for our country to make a statement like that, that's an action. That's a decision that has an effect on what our country is itself. I'm not trying to like moral grandstand.
No, I absolutely get where you're going. I'll put it this way. One of my favorite episodes of The West Wing is Shibboleth.
Connor, okay. Shibboleth, okay.
I gotta watch that show.
Connor.
Yeah, Connor.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, I don't want people to misunderstand. I am not an immigration isolationist. I think we said that we didn't like assimilation. I am a immigration integrationist. All I want is literally, if I could find a utilitarian calculus for exactly how many people we can take for like the refugee population of the world, so nobody is getting killed in their home countries, and then marry that with how many people gives us ideal economic outcomes, and also how well can we integrate those people. If there was like an X, Y, Z axis that we could find the perfect number to meet all of those criteria, that's what I would want. The only reason why I bring up the Z axis for me, which is like maintaining these three cultural linchpins, is because basically my fear is that there's a lot of correct moral arguments for allowing people into the country, right? So they're escaping tyranny, they're escaping corruption, they're escaping failed states, they're gay, so they're going to get killed by their parents, or some shit like that. There's a whole bunch of moral reasons to bring people into this country, but at the same time, basically, like my fear is that if you destroy these cultural linchpins, which to me are the First, Second, and Fourth Amendment, there's not going to be a place to escape to. So you have to maintain what makes America work. That's the first priority. It's kind of like being on a fucking airplane and putting on an oxygen mask. You put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and then you put the oxygen mask on other people. And this will be my final point before I yield, is basically like, I think that America does have a moral responsibility in South and Central America. I just don't think that moral responsibility is send us all of your refugees from failed states and we'll take all of them in. I think our moral responsibility is we have neighbors to our south who are effectively living in failed states. How do we support those states financially, diplomatically, soft power, hard power, militarily, training their people so they're no longer failed states? And that's what I would like. That way it's not an existential life or death choice for, what is it? I think we brought up not Grenada. What was the other one? Guatemala.
Panama.
Guatemala and Panama. It's not an existential choice about whether or not they live or die, is whether or not they escape to the United States. And with that, I'll yield.
Could I interject, just because I think I actually agree, like maybe 100%. I want to clarify that. Is that cool if I jump in?
That's hardly an interjection, but yeah, that's an agreement. That's an accord.
Well, so what I'm hearing is it sounds like Connor is cutting through what I've heard described as the double blackmail of like racist conservatives don't want anybody coming in, and like woke liberals say like, oh, let's have everybody come in, but that's not an actual policy. That's not a thing that you can do, and therefore nothing gets accomplished, and those people still end up suffering. And it sounds like what he's saying is we need to actually figure out okay, well, we could take people in different numbers of ways. Maybe we can take more people in if we take in more people who will economically benefit us so that our life raft gets stronger and therefore we can take more people in. We might end up taking more people in as a result of this. And it's not about taking in more or less. It's about like how do we do this well? What's an actual policy we can have in place? Kick ass. Okay, yeah, love it.
Yeah, and just to back that up, but I'll be really quick. I don't care if the number is 500,000 or 5 million per year, as long as you can justify to me that literally like social stability will be maintained. These 3 cultural issues that I care about will be maintained. We will, if we get to save all of the world's refugees from slaughter, then sweet. And if we get to maintain, and then if we also get to economically benefit, but also not brain drain all these societies, as long as we can like try to meet these factors in an intelligent way, then that's what I want.
So ADT,
Yeah.
how do the 4 pillars play into immigration? Also, would UBI in the United States, universal healthcare, also absolve all of those resentment of workers toward immigrants? 2 questions.
Okay. So the 4 pillars are,
I've
I
got you,
believe,
Cypher.
the
Go
4
ahead,
pillars
sorry.
I believe are just kind of like the core of what I believe in, which is food, housing, education, and healthcare. I think that a country as rich and powerful as us should be able to somehow move in the direction where people can actually have these things, just kind of as a baseline standard of living. And I do think that universal healthcare, I think that it should extend to immigration to a degree, in the sense that, like, okay, well, at the end of the day, these people still end up like needing healthcare in one way, shape, or form, and it's going to cost us one way or the other. So we're going to have to end up paying for it anyways. I don't know, like, and besides, if we can move to a path to citizenship, then those immigrants will be paying taxes anyways. So I think that kind of like fits in nicely. So to Connor's point, I think that yes, it's true. We should actually divert resources to figure out divert resources to the countries that need it, to the root source. I believe that's what Connor said, or divert resources so that they don't have a reason to leave, or something like that. I don't remember the exact point, the exact
Brain
words,
drain, right.
yeah, but the point is like similar. Basically, divert resources to those countries, help those countries, and what we can take in, we do. And I think that involves moving towards a path of citizenship towards the people that are already here. And so that way we can just kind of, get them, so that way we can get them citizenship. And those that we can get with refugees, we have asylum processes that we need to streamline and actually have asylum processes, because we don't have enough resources to adequately process all these claims. So we need to be able to divert resources to that, and we need to be able to divert resources to the countries themselves, as Counterpoint said.
So on one hand, let's say we have this problem of the workers and in particular the working class, traditional "don't take my job" credo, and also elitists perhaps, or purists, I should say. Let's call them purists. So we have that. If their needs were taken care of to where they did not have to worry about somebody, quote, taking their job, we have addressed one domestic problem. If that then becomes the incentive for more immigration, we defeated the purpose in some way. So if we have an incentive to quell animosity toward immigration, what is the balancing of that equation from across the border so that we're not flooded with people going, they're going to give us free this, free that, go.
Right.
What would be the counterweight to stop it from becoming a massive crisis? I see you, Connor, but I'll let Cypher. I'm throwing a question on the table. Let me have Cypher speak, Connor, and then it goes to
So to reiterate the question to make sure I understand it correctly is, would these 4 pillars if not eliminate, greatly reduce the xenophobia to integration? Is that the primary question?
I would interpret it somewhat that way. Literally, the UBI and reducing xenophobia, correct?
So
in terms of resource management, yeah.
It depends. So in the United States, majority of people still believe that taxes fund spending. And as long as people believe that, they're going to think that they're having money taken out of their pockets to pay for things that to people they feel like don't deserve it. The United States has a huge issue with people viewing non-citizens differently than citizens, just in general. Now, I don't know if it's a problem necessarily, but it does create problems. I'll say that. I'll say it creates problems. One of those being like, well, we can't have open borders with a welfare state. If you have a welfare state and open borders, then you're just going to have a flood of migrants coming into the United States to mooch off of the richness of the country. That's not true, but that's the implication, right? That's the conservative mindset in general about how these things work. So until that is lessened, I'm not sure if it would actually lessen the xenophobia. What it will do, though, is it will increase improve the material conditions of the vast majority of people within the United States, which may reduce some of the economic anxiety just in general that we're seeing in the U.S. So it could have a knock-on effects on xenophobia and that sort of thing, but I don't think it would completely eliminate it. As far as a universal basic income, is it going to be universal if immigrants aren't counted? I don't know. That's another question to be had about the debate with the UBI, if we even get one at all. So I think those sort of things.
Universal, correct. Also, what the important thing of this is, what is the count?
Say again.
Using the four pillars to reduce xenophobia, animosity, close, paranoid, and resentment is one problem needing to be addressed domestically. Interior. What is the counter proposal to stop the flood that could occur because these incentives are then made available? When historically what has happened is, when you impose restrictions, Title 42 in particular, there were others, immigration spikes. Spikes. It doesn't go down. It goes up, way up. There's a rush, as if the walls are going to be stormed. Nobody understands why.
Nobody understands why. I understand why. What the fuck are we talking about?
I would say it's people trying to get
too.
in.
We do, but in other words, the people who's making the policies, that data, it doesn't give us any answers. We don't know why it does that. I know why it does that. It's like lemmings, boom. But what do you think the counterweight proposal would be? You got to balance this. Settle people down here so they're not afraid of immigrants. Give them incentives. The immigrants see the incentives. Can't have quite a flood. What's the counterweight proposal? Hypothetical.
Okay, is it my turn?
I wanted to see if Cypher could answer that, and then yes, we go to you.
Okay.
Or Cypher, you can seed it over either way.
So what's the counter proposal to getting people to stop being xenophobic? Exposure.
Counterweight proposal. Exposure. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I would say just general exposure. There's been a host of anecdotal evidence of people being like, wait a second, I thought Trump was talking about criminals. Why are you deporting my friend that I've known for 10 years that runs the restaurant and teaches my kids like Little League or what have you? I can't remember the exact thing. I think this was actually in Indiana, where there was a prominent member of the community. He was on like the church board. He was he ran a restaurant. His kids were citizens, and he like ran a stop sign or a stoplight or something stupid and got deported over it. And that like completely changed the minds of everyone in that community about immigration to an extent. So I think if you have people exposed, I hate to say it, but not like, for lack of a better phrasing, flooded into an area. If anybody's seen the documentary Wild Wild Country, you can tell how people might react if they're seeing their entire way of life being taken away from them by people getting into government and stuff like that. So but with exposure comes acceptance, comes, oh, these people are just like us, blah blah blah.
Okay, Connor, you've been waiting.
Yeah, so sorry. I am
No.
not as rosy cheeked and optimistic as fucking everybody else is. Jesus goddamn Christ. All right, so number one, this is kind of a meme, but it's also not, okay? Because basically the thing about it is we have to deal with this shit. And it seems like Central American countries are just not able to deal with corruption. They're not able to deal with the narco cartels. They're not able to deal with corrupt police. They're not able to deal with corrupt politicians. And basically, I think Americans do that fairly well. So basically, whenever we have a high-profile criminal organization inside our country, we do one of two things: we either jail them or we kill them. That's what we do. We have a long history of doing it, and we kind of don't give a shit about it. And I think we do it well. So this is a meme, but I'm still going to meme it anyways. I basically vote that America annexes every Central American country down to the Panama Canal. We go to war with the cartels. We add another 10 states. We add another 10 states to our flag, that including Puerto Rico and Guam. That way, everybody's really happy that we have our flag is nice and balanced with another 10. And then we finish Simone Bolivar's project of Gran Colombia. We advise Colombia to become like an administrative empire of like northeastern, South America and Central America, and then we just get rid of all these fucking problems. We literally threaten the narco cartels. We say, hey, we will buy your annual production of cocaine and heroin and whatever at this rate. We'll synthesize it into medicine. If you produce any more than that, we'll fucking kill you. And if anybody starts a small shop, it's your job to kill them, or we'll kill them on your behalf.
But I thought that's how it got like that in the first place. Also, I want free World Cup soccer tickets. I'm just saying.
Okay.
I mean, in Haiti, we literally invaded Haiti, took it over, tried to build it up, and then didn't give up, just got bored and left.
Haiti is a pretty unique place historically. I have plenty of anecdotes for that. But anyways, so since most people are probably not going to support my invade South and Central America idea, we can move to something a little bit more practical. And one of my frustrations with talking to leftists is like I get that like so basically what ADT basically said is, I'm a socialist. That's what I heard. I heard food, housing, security. I heard decommodifying a basic human need. That's what I heard. And if you were living in a failed state and you knew that there was an 80% or a 90% chance of you surviving, and if you jumped a river and maybe got raped, you could basically live in a utopian socialist heaven where all of your basic needs were decommodified and all that kind of shit. Why wouldn't you do it? Like, I have no idea, like, how you do a utopian socialist welfare state with a bunch of failed states to your south and don't expect to have. I don't even know the population of South and Central America. Is it like 800 million? I don't understand. Million. Yeah, I don't. 200
million.
That's not that many. I'm going to Google it. But I don't understand how you don't have 200 million people north of the Rio Grande in a decade. So with that, I yield.
200 million people north of the Rio Grande within a decade. Okay, so the numbers of refugees. You're saying South and Central are 200 million people?
I don't think that's right. I think the entire continent is like 1.2 billion or something like that.
Oh, no.
Like
no,
billion?
You're thinking of Africa. Central America, that is Mexico, the Caribbean, and like everything between Panama and Mexico. That almost rounds up to like 210 the last I checked.
What's South America?
I've got South America altogether.
Because I was adding both.
Oh I'm terrible.
All right,
600. It's 600 million.
Yeah,
so
it would be.
So we would have 600 million people inside the United States in a fucking decade if we did what ADT wants us to.
Whatever the numbers are whatever the numbers are right now, the number of refugees alone that do not even include asylum seekers has already topped over 40 million in 2017.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The number of refugees.
Globally, or applying for asylum specifically in the United States?
This is not even asylum. These are internally displaced peoples. Refugees.
Okay.
I believe it.
Globally? I'm just
Chiapas?
asking globally.
No. Chiapas, Chihuahua, Guatemala.
There's 40
Just
million
Nigeria.
internally displaced people in South and Central America.
And hit in 2017,
Mhm.
40 million.
Yeah. That's fucking insane.
So,
Yeah.
just to throw you some numbers to give you a perspective on it, why wouldn't there be and of course 40 million people clearly did not make it. Just to give you that perspective. Those are just the IDPs.
There's some funny numbers with this. I'm gonna break this conversation up a little bit because I think it's really important. What we've seen definitely because of Venezuela is that there is a serious issue when dealing with Central American immigration because literally anyone and everyone can walk here. Getting past what is called the Darien Gap, which is about a 30-mile stretch right south of the Panama Canal, is incredibly hard. No one can walk through it. It is some of the most rugged topography and geography on the surface of the planet, and particularly these continent or the Western Hemisphere. Almost no one crosses it. If you do, it's by boat or it's by plane, which usually that's mostly drug runners and human traffickers, that kind of thing. So immigration out of South America it can happen, but it's very negligible compared to Central America. So I would almost advocate table South America. It's not nearly much of an issue.
Okay, so that's my new border for Great America and Gran Colombia. So there we go.
Fair enough. Fair enough. ADT.
Can we go north, get those cheap drugs?
Oh, Jesus. Do you have any idea what it takes to get on that train or go through those Cayotero gauntlets? Go ahead, ADT.
I don't think that number one, having a baseline for human necessity necessarily means we're in a socialist utopia. And second of all, we as Americans probably have the resources. That's really weird. Why aren't we 325 million people moving to Denmark where they have absolutely education, they have healthcare, they have housing programs, they have all of these other stuff? That's really weird. 325 million people. I think a lot of us should probably.
But they're just not doing it from South America.
Interjection.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yes, interjection.
Sorry.
They don't have guns and they don't have 24/7 convenience stores. Yield.
I don't think that makes. I don't know. I don't think that matters.
Let's hear that again. ADT, go ahead.
I don't think that matters. And wait a minute, doesn't Switzerland everybody has a gun?
It's because they don't want us. Let's face it. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so the idea that all of a sudden, just because a country offers a little bit more social programs and things like that, doesn't necessarily translate into this huge mass migration. Maybe it'll increase it, but I seriously doubt that it's gonna result in a overwhelming we just can't handle the waves of people coming over just because people have a little bit more social programs. Furthermore, that kind of blocks the conversation of how to make things better here. So I don't know. That seems like that doesn't seem like an argument to me because again, Canada, which is right to our north, has free healthcare, free education and things like that. Well, not free, but meaning it is provided due to taxes and all that stuff. So I think that we'll make that argument. Why isn't a whole bunch of Americans who are able to afford it
because
just simply
living? Sorry.
Yeah, why aren't we all just by the droves moving to Canada?
Okay, I would like to respond to that because I feel like that was primarily directed to me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
So it's because we have comparable standards of living. So basically, the wealth between an American and a Canadian is not a vast gap. The wealth between a Dominican or a Central American is insane. Okay, so basically, just to give it a comparison. So I went to the Dominican Republic in order to do some mission work, and I'm pretty sure a bottle of Coca-Cola, which costs $1, $1.25, $1.50 here, just as a comparison for standard of living, cost 6 cents in the country. 6 cents. So whether you're talking about consumption, wages, standard of living, ability to live in clean housing, all that kind of stuff, Canada and America, like I understand that we get butthurt about not having universal healthcare inside the United States, and we get butthurt about basically the erosion of our middle and working class. But Canada and America are nearly neck and neck if you were to like macroscopically look at wealth. But the difference between Guatemala and America or Guatemala and Canada is a vast gulf. And basically, what frustrates me about this conversation, because CSP has said it, I think you've said it too, is that like American intervention is responsible for the economic straits of South and Central America. Okay, this is partially. One second, I'll finish the point, and then I'd be very happy to hear it. So that's partially true. Okay, but at the same time, you have to root yourself in the material conditions of your environment and start from there. So the Dominican Republic, Guatemala, whatever, they all have natural resources that they can use in order to specialize on the global economic fucking thing and then trade their shit outside, maintain some fucking wealth, develop it, fucking put it into their fucking local people. And it just doesn't seem like they are. So my concern is like there's some workers who are hyper productive, who want to come to America and be productive. That's fucking dope. But at the same time, the fact that you can't figure that out domestically and you're like, oh, well, they'll just figure it out when they fucking get here. I don't get that leap of logic. And CSP, it looks like I'm triggering the fuck out of you, so I'm very happy to hear it.
Triggering, okay. so what you did clarify your point is that you said sure it's partly to blame. What you're not necessarily acknowledging is the fact that every time the South American, Central American governments have tried to do exactly what you just said, they have had the CIA come and fuck their shit up. Completely overturn their socialist governments, completely put in right-wing dictators, and all this other stuff, right? And even when they haven't been doing that, they've made deals with left-wing governments in order to still maintain their economic dominance over the industries in which they could be doing that. So Venezuela is a huge example of this, right? So Venezuela is exporting a fuck ton of oil all over the world. America went through and put down sanctions against the oil industry within Central America or within Venezuela, and that actually hurt their oil industry from being able to go further. I yield.
Okay. Sorry, ADT. I really need to jump into this.
No,
okay?
you go first.
Okay, thank you.
I'll let you guys decide when you want to cut each other off that way.
So this is my frustration with this conversation. Okay, the CIA is 6 assholes with a briefcase of $1 million. They walk into your country and they hand it to a guy with a gun, and then that guy takes over your country. Yeah. If 6 guys with $1 million can fuck up your country, it was already fucked up to begin with.
But you're
number 2.
Ignoring...
Hold on, I'm not done. All right. So number 2. You mentioned that all these left-wing and socialist fucking governments keep getting fucked over by the CIA. That's probably true. America has corporate interests, has national level interests, capitalist interests, all that kind of shit. But what you're not realizing is socialism, spreading the wealth, redistributive economics, decommodifying the basic fucking shit. If you have something, like a little fucking nugget, and you try to redistribute fucking something small, then you're still redistributing something fucking small. So if you take 0 and you divide it by a fucking million, it's still fucking 0. Okay? So basically you have underdeveloped economies that are not ready for fucking socialism or communism. And they're like, we're going to give you fucking everything. Well, how are we going to get everything? The magic of socialism. But they don't even have shit to fucking give them because their economies are not developed yet. Almost done triggering you, I promise. When it fucking when it comes to Venezuela, very specifically, America and the United States did not just like fucking, just like declog their fucking asshole one day and they're like, you know what? I really don't like South American fucking brown people. What happened was Venezuela nationalized the fucking oil companies inside their fucking country. They kicked out all of the global fucking oil interests that were inside that country, basically yoinked all their fucking shit. And America said, you know what? fuck you, motherfuckers. We're going to go ahead and sanction your shit. And you know what's fucked up? Is the engineers, the corporate, like all the fucking like high-tech, high-level people who were inside Venezuela fled because they didn't want to fucking be in a socialist government. And then on top of that, Venezuela has some of the dirtiest oil on the planet. You basically have to cut it at like a ratio of like 80% to fucking 20% with Middle Eastern and North African oil. Yeah. What is the incentive for American transnational corporations to share the wealth with a socialist government that stole billions of dollars from them? Yield.
No, I will concede the point on Venezuela specifically because they did it in such a bad way that it gives all leftists everywhere a bad name, honestly. I don't consider myself to be a leftist. I consider myself to be a Rawlsian. So there is a difference there. And I encourage everyone to please read the Theory of Justice and Justice is Fair and It's a Restatement if you can't get through the slog that is a theory of justice, because it is a slog. However, we can look at the redistributive efforts and the bottom-up building of the economies of Central South American countries. Bolivia greatly comes to mind. Covered this over on the cast last night, where Bolivia, the movement towards socialism party, MAS, I don't know what it is in Spanish, sorry, but the material conditions of the poor, they like cut poverty rate in half. It was like almost 50% of the country was objectively in poverty, and over the last 15 years that number has fallen to 20%. So that was the only point I wanted to make.
Regardless of this dichotomization, left versus right, we have the larger picture in the history, the entire history of immigration, and how do we take care of folks, and why are they here, if their needs are not being met. And then we have to talk about what happens when you take indigenous people, split them in half, and then treat them like illegal immigrants. So ADT had his paw up first, and then between Connor and Socratease, you'll choose. But ADT, go ahead.
Yeah.
Can I just 1 second? Sorry, I
no,
have
go ahead.
to
Go ahead.
Walk my dog. I'll be back in 30 minutes.
Okay.
So if you guys aren't
30 minutes
here when I get back, I'm sorry. I walk her every night between 9 and 9:30. So I'll try to make it quick, but I'll leave it recording so y'all can get your recording piece in if there's issues. But I will be back.
Okay, good. ADT, let me have you go. Then Connor and Socratease, you choose who goes between the two of you. ADT.
Okay. Yeah, what he was referring to was MAS, Movimiento a Socialismo, I think. It's like movement. Yeah, movement towards socialism. Number one, I think that, like, going back to the point that I was making, we can take more comparable countries if you want. Costa Rica is actually one of the top countries in Central America. They have universal healthcare. They have a pretty good standard of living. They're consistently on the top 10 to 15 happiest countries on earth. That's really weird. Like, nobody there's like just moving in droves into Costa Rica. So the point being is that just because you offer a slightly better standard of living here in the United States does not mean all of a sudden a just influx of immigrants are going to come for our quote unquote freebies, which aren't free. They're paid for by taxes, in which case you have to pay taxes. That's how we get these things. So yeah, again, I don't know, like, if that like argument works to convince me that, like, just because we have a standard like baseline, I'm not talking about like some type of socialist utopia. I'm talking about like basic things. That does not mean there's just going to be like a massive influx of immigration. Sorry, and with that, go ahead, Connor. I know you wanted to respond to CSP, or I don't know, because he left, unfortunately. But go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Socratease. Do you want to jump in real quick?
Yeah. I mean, so so I was actually going to try to refocus the conversation, because I feel like we're starting to move into or we maybe have jumped quite far into what I think will be an unproductive territory of, like, is socialist utopia like a good idea? I'm very concerned about the conversation getting very our ship going off the rails.
Can I excise my ADD real quick?
Please. Yeah.
But the
All right,
ADD.
I will excise my ADD, and then we can get back on a topic. So with Costa Rica, I have no idea what the fucking population of Costa Rica is. I have no idea what their population density is, but I'm sure there's a reason of a host of geographic factors that basically make the Costa Rica probably not a great place for 40 million internally displaced Central and South American people to move to, probably because there's not that much fucking territory, or they have fucking tough immigration laws, or this, that, the other. I'm sure there's a whole host of fucking reasons why Costa Rica isn't the destination. Otherwise, I would counterpoint to you: why the fuck are people moving to the United States? Then Costa Rica is fucking closer, isn't it? Isn't it easier to fucking get to? All right, so that's my first counterpoint. Then my second counterpoint is basically what I don't like about lefties talking about internal, economic well-being of socialist nations rising dramatically within like a decade or two, is because you have to fucking look at the context from which those countries are arising. I'm pretty sure Russia had one of the most explosive fucking growths in all of human history. And it's not because authoritarian communism was a good fucking idea. It's because before fucking economic development, Russia was fucking two guys in a fucking turnip farm, okay? So when they brought in a fucking tractor, they effectively increased the fucking GDP by 10,000 fucking percent. So when you fucking come at me with like, oh, well, they fucking increased GDP by 10,000 fucking percent. It's like if you start with a fucking turnip factory and you brought in a fucking metal tractor, I'm not fucking impressed, okay? Basically, the fact that they didn't bring in a fucking metal tractor in the first place is a criticism of the people who fucking ran the turnip farm before. Yield.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so just to
Okay. But to get it not only back, and you have said a while, and it is getting good. It's getting very good. We don't want it going into socialism bad, communism bad. We don't want it going into that.
We can do that next week.
We need to. I would love to have you continue each aspect. I will set a special panel time aside for you if you agree to do it. However, I want to talk about what matters to me. Which is my people, traditionally. This territory in dispute is where we lived. It was cut in half.
Mm-hmm.
Indian border, Mexican border. Many of us still attempt to live on these borders where we have either been recruited into border patrol, which we have done very successfully, or we are now, and Cypher left, he knew about this. There was a proposal, Tona Autumn offered to be the official border patrol to ease tensions, to save the money, to do that. We've done it for historically for decades. We do it very well.
Mm-hmm.
That was not accepted. Instead, whenever we have to, whenever the Tona Autumn need to go collect their ceremonial pottery, which they do a couple times a year, so they're now being stopped. Their papers are being rejected as fraudulent, and the Native American citizens are being deported to Mexico, a country they've never lived and were never born in. Deported and dumped off in Nogales. And I don't know if you've ever been to Nogales. That's not where you want to get dumped off. So immigration is one thing. Immigration is managed by some sort of border. So we need to talk about sin fronteras. Las sin fronteras, the borders that delineate entitlement, what's mine and what's yours, and what it does to indigenous populations. Although I know you don't have background research, indigenous populations who have been cut in half. It's not just the Tona Autumn, it's also the Akwesasne, if you don't know them. They have, in order to get through the Akwesasne land, you have to cross the US-Canada border 8 times. It's the most ridiculous government, local government ever. It's impossible to navigate. And the Mohawk themselves, going from Laurentian Plateau in Canada into New York. Most famously, do you know lacrosse, the game lacrosse?
Yes.
So, do you know the people who invented the game are in fact the Iroquois people?
Yeah, I knew it was Native American. I didn't know what tribe, though.
Iroquois. All right. So there's a major world competition. It's an extremely popular game. And so the entire Air Corps lacrosse team with their passports and visas from their reservation and a letter signed by the Secretary of State were denied entry into the UK for the competition, playing a game that they themselves invented because the UK decided it would not recognize those travel visas because they didn't come from what they thought was an established federal authority, even though the Secretary of State herself signed the letter, and it's their own fucking game. So borders and immigration, culture, morals, whose is what? All right. So I would like to hear from non-indigenous people, although ADT, I don't know if you're indigenous, Chicano, or, but non-indigenous people. This is another consequence of borders and immigration policy that nobody wants to talk about. Okay. So we are being treated now like illegales in our own territory. So what kind of national security threat are we? We're not the ones running the drugs or the guns, the ones stopping the running of drugs and guns. I'd like to hear it from non-indigenous people what they think of that in terms of immigration.
Well,
And
how bad do you want your land back?
how bad do we want our land back?
Yeah, I mean, you asked about a national security threat, so I mean, if it's not a big deal, then I mean, like, we'll be all right. All right, like I'm fucking memeing.
Yeah, you know
but
what I mean, because we're not we have no land back suit, first of all, so it's fine.
Yeah. So so stopping with the memes. So I have no idea. So the administration. So I view territorial administration. I'm not an ethno-nationalist. Okay, I'm a civic nationalist. So basically meaning that I think that the virtues or the principles that people choose to abide by should determine whether or not they gain access to a nation, a continuous area of administration. And for Native Americans, I don't know, since we pretty much nearly genocided the Native American population, since we basically fucked them over at every opportunity, I have no idea why they're not automatically granted dual citizenship so they can freely travel as much as any American citizen. Maybe it's a sovereignty issue. Maybe Native Americans don't want American citizenship as a symbolic gesture. But from a pragmatic standpoint, I don't know why dual citizenship wouldn't be automatically granted for Native Americans. As far as
right, but the Border Patrol itself has determined that somehow we're illegal immigrants.
Yeah, I mean, like, so that this is kind of meany, but this is how I feel about it. It's like we fucked you over, stole your land, moved you onto like fucking reservations, said that you couldn't go here, couldn't go there. Least we can do is fucking give you the ability to freely travel within our borders. And it comes down to like an administrative level. The reason why I'm not a globalist is because I think it would be literally impossible to administrate a global society. I think it's impossible. I think that you're still going to need driver's licenses. You're still going to need like regional. There's still going to be regional languages. There's still going to be regional cultures. There's still going to be bureaucracies that need to occur, local municipal bureaucracies. And you basically have to have the city, county, state, national infrastructure, followed by maybe a supranational infrastructure to administrate everything at its appropriate level. So that's kind of my thing, where it's like you're a nation within a nation. If we don't have bad blood, why not just give you the ability to? I mean, you can have bad blood, obviously, but if we don't have bad blood and we want to be good faith, why wouldn't we just extend you those rights de facto so you can move as you see fit?
True. Well, why was a border put directly in the crossing our lands in the first place? Is our question. But what does everybody else think? Because this is what I'd like to hear. I personally would love to hear.
Yeah.
AD,
Sorry.
Socratease, which one?
ADT, if you want to go first.
Okay. This has been like the best argument for no borders I've ever heard. I mean, that's what I got from it. Maybe borders equal bad. I don't know. That's like kind of like the gist that I got from that argument. But it seems like the TLDR of what Counterpoints was saying is like it's a policy failure. We need to fix that. That's unacceptable. It's a policy failure at the federal level that needs to be addressed.
Mm. What would that mean in terms of immigration if the border was basically either had to go around reservation reserve lands or was abolished? The TO will not allow a wall to be built on their land. Most
Right.
likely, as traditional as they are, if you do not know them, along with the Hopi, they may literally sacrifice every individual in that land to stop that wall.
Yeah, no, I was not making a open borders argument. I was just saying like that sounds like a good idea. That sounds like if there was an open borders argument as to why we have like even lines in the sand, that would be it. It should be up to the indigenous people to decide what exactly their policy should be. But in terms of like restricting people, like that's not cool, and that sounds like a complete like failure on the federal level.
Yeah, not only restricting but deporting.
Yeah, I don't even know how that's like
country
that.
they never came from.
That is unbelievably like unfathomable that would be even be a thing. I don't know where the failure or disconnect happened, where they thought that this was okay.
Well, I can maybe.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so this is like the question of like, what is the crime of crossing a border compared to the crime of creating a border, right? So there's this notion of like,
What?
Wow.
So
which is worse?
Yeah, which is worse, crossing a border or creating a border? Which is I kind of bastardized this from the original phrase is like what is the robbing of a bank compared to the founding of a bank?
Right. In this case, the man deported crossed legally with his passport and visa and was denied entrance on return. They said his papers were fraudulent. He could not understand English, and they deported him to Nogales.
Unbelievable.
Anyway,
Can I be like safely kicked out of the left because I claim like right wing, and then people yell at me. But then you say like, what is the moral difference or like the moral gravity of creating and enforcing a border versus having a border? And I just we're not even.
Well,
like,
I'm not saying that we
planet.
should or shouldn't do it. I'm just trying to recognize what it is that is happening.
Sure.
I'm not. Yeah.
Memeing really well, and you're all going to end up on polyclips. I promise you. But
That's good. That makes it all worth it.
You have me personally asking each of you.
So
for the audience, what do you think of this?
So there's this notion of like the founding crime of a nation, right? So for America, it's the genocide of indigenous people here. For Australia, it's the genocide of indigenous people there. The reason why we're kind of as a world people were kind of obsessed with like Israel-Palestine is because that founding crime has not yet been completed. It's still ongoing. It's not that it's like fully completed in the US, but it's pretty much been accepted that like America's a nation. America has a right to have done all these things because we've basically been successful. And so there's two ways to look at what's happening at the border when it comes to the American border cutting through people's lands, which is you could look at it as, well, this is kind of an edge case. We're a huge nation, and there's just some people at the border who are being dispossessed. That's one way that you could look at it, right? In the same way that you could look at, just by analogy, like trans rights, like, well, trans people or intersex people are kind of a minority, pretty small minority, so we should keep gender the way it is. There's another way to look at issues like this, and I'm not trying to expand the scope, just make an analogy. There's another way to look at this, which is that this kind of breaking of the fabric of reality, we're kind of seeing behind the curtain and seeing something about how the whole system operates by seeing this kind of bizarre, kind of phantasmic event at the border, where it's like, well, you've lived on this land for centuries, since before this nation existed, and we're now going to declare you like aliens to this place. That seems like on its face a really bizarre state of affairs, but that's the functioning of the whole system. And again, not saying like, okay, let's abolish America. I'm not making that statement, but I'm saying that this reveals something about how things do operate.
Okay. Well, I need
Point
to.
how they should.
So yeah, sorry. So basically, like this is my frustration with the abolishing, like the abolishing argument or the crime argument and Socratease or ADT. I'm not trying to strawman you, but basically, it's like you're like, oh well, you know, America was fucked up and we did this fucked up thing and we set this border. I'm pretty sure that border was set 140, like 100 and maybe 68 years ago or something like that. Like the War of Mexico was like somebody Google the war, the Mexican American War. That was when the border was set by the United States.
1848.
No. It was officially established because white residents of Southern California did not transmigrant workers. 2 million living there or working there happened after the Dust Bowl. So it was officially established, and then these workers were supposed to have been sent home. And of course, they built the border and closed it and trapped them there.
So it's the ending of the transmigratory visas that's the problem here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the border, physical border and official border was established for that reason, to tighten up that area. It had more to do with the Dust Bowl than anything.
Sure, but at the same time, the solution isn't to eliminate a border. The solution is to basically reinstitute transmigratory visas for people who should have the ability to do so. Like that's where it's like, or as I earlier said, we can invade down to the Panama Canal, solve this problem too fucking sweet.
No.
So you know.
Yeah, it sounds funny, but someone in chat was saying, you know, you do have in Africa, you have nations that will just hemorrhage citizens due to. And Scott had said, well, when that happens, why doesn't the origin country just cede more land? That way, that
Why
makes them
doesn't
citizens.
the United States cede more land?
No, that was something in Africa, but the idea of let's just annex countries. There's a parallel there with things that are happening in Africa, where the nations hemorrhaging members, they're not sustainable, and they we'll just cede the land to the country, and therefore technically they're citizens. Now, something along those lines has been happening, so it does sound kind of like that's a big meme, but there is a kind of analog to that.
I think, but I think the actual chances of us, you know, actually becoming a unitary political entity with South America running all the way down to the Panama border, I don't think there's popular support for that in the United States or Central America. Probably.
It's not tenable anyway.
Although I wouldn't mind starting to ask. Like
I like that idea of making the flag like keep it square, because that's like,
you need
one more
10.
like how do you make a flag like that? But make 10.
Need 10.
Yeah, make it squared off. Yeah,
I don't think you
that
got in on that, and I haven't heard your take precisely.
I'm a little lost because you asked about what this.
You think about the borders cutting through reservations and the fact that you have indigenous people who went to Mexico, for instance, legally and were stopped on the way back and deported as if they were illegal immigrants.
Okay, yeah.
Reality. What do you think of
right. Yeah, I'll surmise this into two pieces. Number one is that let's just be honest here. This is business as usual for the United States and the Mexican government. The reservation system is just something they're trying to get rid of, and any more that they can destroy it, they will continue to do so. Just blatantly that.
Right. He's right. That's what it is. I wondered if he knew that.
Yeah, they don't. The United States government doesn't not only sees the reservation system as just something that was a means to an end, but now it's just something in the way from formally annexing the territories outright and just basically finishing Manifest Destiny.
Speaking of annex, they didn't expect us to survive, is what the truth is.
Well, here's the worst part about this: you're on the way of being out. Every demographic trend that we're seeing with the Native American community is that you're all gone by 2150.
Oh no, hardly. know that the demographics are skewed, but we know why and
Sure.
how. And you
Well,
don't. I don't
well,
wanna
if I
get
if
into
I'm
that, but,
yeah,
Don't start fucking.
but the thing is,
if I'm
but the
wrong about
thing
that,
is,
that's fine. It's just the data that I've seen is that they're just basically playing the time clock here. They're just waiting for
statistic
yeah.
I can only tell you that
The time
statistically,
clock.
that's skewed statistics in order to make it appear that way. That is, in fact, not the case. However, we have our own problems, none of
Mhm.
which I asked you to research or talk about here, like blood quantum. But I just wanted to hear from you what you thought. And you are right. They are attempting to solve a lot of reservations because Congress won't. So some other party took it into their own hands. Also, the TO protested against the wall, and so there's a whole lot of what looks like retribution on the part of the Border Patrol, which on the border appears to operate now as an independent agency. It's no longer responding to any directives. Don't know if that will change with Biden's administration or not. Appreciate
Question.
your input on that. And CSP, if you're back now, do you guys been sitting for a while? Would you like to stay and sit for longer?
I kind of have a hard out at 11, but I do want to hang out as much as I can. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
same.
For sure. So
Are
11.
we opening it up to like open like chat coming in, etc.?
Is
You can-
11
yeah.
70 minutes from now?
Yeah. It's 11 7 minutes from now.
It is, but like I can probably hang out for like another 10 to 15 after that, and then just beg for forgiveness from my wife. So
Okay. If you guys would like to go ahead and continue your last, give you maybe your closing statements or whatever. If chat wants to come over and hang out, chat, put your paws up in the chat. We do have a few people that generally stick around and talk because they love you guys. So if you want to go ahead and give your closing perspective on this, it's a lot. You've unpacked a lot. I would like a continuing conversation
sure.
with you guys and then others coming in because you're so very different, but necessary. And although you've kind of bonded up a little bit, yet your perspectives are distinct. And all I ever wanted to do was get a thorough take on something, and that's what you're bringing. So it's up to you. But go ahead and do your closing statements for this, and then we'll see if we can just have a little after party or something.
Okay. Who wants to kick it?
We'll leave Ty to be the last since it's especially his field. Who'd like to counter? Why don't you start because you have the hard stop.
Sure. So basically, when it comes to this topic in particular, I think we can do some administrative fixes. I think the fact that Native Americans have gotten fucked over super hard throughout history, and specifically with borders or basically trying to play their own game on an international level. Those are the kinds of things that they talk about, like white privilege or white guilt or something like that. That's the thing that white people actually need to be conscientious of. Hey, we fucked these people over. We literally stole their land. We killed like 99% of them. Maybe we could fucking let them play lacrosse in the UK and fucking give them the ability to travel to holy sites back and forth without harassment from law enforcement. Specifically for that, that's kind of where I'm at. I don't think you need to abolish the system or anything like that. For the topics in general, I'll try to be very brief, but basically I'm interested in preserving three things: right to freedom of speech or conscience, the right to defend yourself, including up against your government, and a limited government that actually follows the rule of law. I think I pleased Socratease with my XYZ axis analogy of the three factors that I'm trying to balance to actually create a functional society. If we can meet that thing, I don't care if it's 500,000 or 5 million people. I am, just interested in maintaining a healthy and happy republic without destroying the rest of the world in order to do it. So with that, I'll yield and let these other galaxy brains get their galaxy brains out.
Fair play. Okay, thank you so much. If you need to just hang in Discord or whatever, anybody in chat, if you want to do that, pick another chat channel, voice channel. I think Fire Ring is fine. In chat, if anybody wants to go hang out and meet Connor, you can join him in there. So because he's on a time limit, but who wants to go next?
Sure. I'll go.
Socrates. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's too bad I'm saying it right when he leaves because yeah. I mean, I was just gonna start by saying like I really encouraged by this conversation. this went really, really well. This made me
I thought that was a bit painful.
feel very, very good. Um, I think with like 5 of us here, going through a lot of material, I think we were able to keep like mostly pretty on track, and we were able to keep like very very level headed about this, and I'm really happy about that. I think yeah, I mean I exactly disagree with counterpoints when he talks about like what like white liberal guilt will push us to do. White liberal guilt is the kind of thing that pushes you to say like, yes, you can travel this border, yes, you can play lacrosse. It will not push you to investigate those founding crimes of your nation. It will not push you to think about, okay, well, why is it that we've been reduced to thinking about just gestures rather than reparations? Why is that not on the table? Why is that an insane idea? Why is that self-destructive to do reparations? Why is it self-destructive to try to pay back for attempt to repair damage they have done to other people? Why does that not make our nation and our world a stronger, healthier place? Yeah.
Mm. And then immigration in general.
And then immigration in general. I'm really glad that we agreed up front that like economically, overall, immigrants are a huge boon. There's like that slight detriment of like people who didn't graduate college maybe suffer financially to some degree from immigration, but this is like very easily corrected for with government programs. When it comes to like cultural issues, the only thing that we have consistently across American history is lots of immigration and lots of new cultures coming in. That's the American ethos. That is the only thing that truly binds us together, is the fact that we've had large like immigrant groups from coming in from other places and bringing all the really cool shit that they have with them, and also then consistently exploiting them. So hopefully we can not do that as much in the future. Find another way to be. But yeah, I think in general this kind of like immigration issue is just like 80% made up. Like it's not a real issue. It's not a crisis. There's a humanitarian crisis in the border where we're not properly helping people who are coming in. We don't have welcoming centers. We have detention centers where cages are way above capacity. That's not the system we should have. It should be something that actually integrates people and helps people. It's not an issue. It's possible that if we made America so good, then like also like too many people would come here. Maybe that's an issue. I haven't heard that demonstrated to be an issue. It seems to me that a lot of people aren't interested in uprooting their homes away from their homes and their families, and that's why people don't all just flood immediately, through thousands of miles to better places. It seems like no one's demonstrated to me numerically that it's an issue financially, that it's a burden for us to provide services such as healthcare or UBI to people who come here and work and pay taxes despite not being citizens and being undocumented. So the kind of detriments seem like so far just made up issues. Thank you.
Okay, if you want to step into the fire ring, Connor may still be there, and if anyone in chat wants to join and talk to these guys for a little bit, they're going to be in the fire ring in the Discord. All of you should have the links. If you do not have Discord, here is the Discord. They brought a lot to the table tonight. Okay, thank you for that. ADT, do you also have a hard stop?
Yeah, kind of.
You do. Do you want to give your closing statement?
Sure. So basically, in terms of like immigration, I'm gonna just essentially piggyback off what Socrates was saying. I don't think it's like a quote unquote like big crisis. I think that yes, there are crises in terms of like how our system is. It's not nowhere near nowhere near adequate to be able to process these asylum claims and all of these immigrants that are coming here. Furthermore, I think that like whenever the whole border thing is brought up, it's manufactured. Most immigration, I think there was even counterpoints that brought it up. Most of it is just overstayed visas. So like the idea that there's like some kind of like scary crisis at the border is just not true. And I think that we can do a lot of improvements to make sure that we can not only have a humane process, but also divert resources to these countries, which we kind of owe it to them too, to try to fix that problem. And like Socrates said, there's just like no real reason as to why us having a slight improvement here in our country means that people are just gonna start like immigrating here. I think that immigration is important to this country. I mean, it was literally it's the foundation of this country, and in a sense that like we're all like immigrants. I mean, I'm an immigrant. I'm the son of immigrants, and I think that we I think that we do have a lot to contribute, and I think that I mean, it's literally emboldened in one of the most iconic things, which is our Statue of Liberty. I mean, that's literally what it was about. Give me your tireless, give me your hungry, give me your poor, right? Is that not what it says? Or something close to it? So, yeah, why not? Why can't we do what's right, do what's humane, and also, when we can help the other countries, do that as well?
If we have so much, why do we withhold?
Correct.
Okay, if you want to hang, talk with the fellas and maybe some people in chat, and if you have to go, still want to say appreciate you being here so much. I think you've unpacked a lot, and that this could be a series that I would love to host in and of itself, if anyone would consider that. I think it's fantastic. It's my actual work, one of my areas, so obviously it's important to me. So I was very happy to hear everything. Okay, and I want to thank you again, and hope it wasn't too rough. You got tense, but you held your own as usual, and you found a spirit animal. How about
Yeah,
that?
and I'm telling you, like a lot of the stuff that you were saying, CSP was like word for it, because like I'm not exactly the best type of like public speaker or anything like that, which is why I remember in our interview you asked me what was the latest book I was reading. It's a book on public speaking. I'm not really that well versed in like rhetoric or anything like that, and I tried to like better myself in that way. But a lot of the ideas that are in here were kind of like better expressed in the stuff that you were saying, CSP. That's why I was like, oh, yep, there's my spirit animal right there. He's basically channeling all the stuff in my head, just in like words that sound more smooth than I can put together.
Well, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you? Because I'm thinking this is probably just an age difference.
How old do you think I am?
I don't think you're 35. Oh,
okay. Well, that's good. 30.
Okay. So
holy shit! I thought you were like younger. 19.
Yeah, I didn't think 19, but I thought.
Man, you got fucking
late 20s.
I don't know what your skincare routine is or what, but like.
Oh, that's funny.
Just probably, yeah. So I thought you were 27 tops. So, but still, 5-year difference. I've been doing this for a while. It's gonna come with practice, man. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I coach public speaking too, so let me remind you, I actually do coach that. If you actually want to sit down, very quickly we could get you up to snuff if you have about a couple hours a week maximum. It's not
I need
difficult.
to take you up
so
on
hit
that.
me up if you actually want a real public speaking coach.
Yeah, I need
I'll
to
be happy to do it.
take you up on that. I think we even talked about this.
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
I need to take you up on that.
We did. Yeah. But we'll let you go if you want.
All
If
right.
you guys want to bounce over there to fire ring.
I think Tiberius still didn't finish.
Yeah.
Off.
Didn't get to do
Cypher, you gave your closing statements?
No, I didn't, but
Okay,
I'll just say
because
that
I wanted to have Cypher last.
Okay. I just wanted to say that sorry for having to leave. I had to walk my dog. She's on a routine
No
and she gets
problem.
very mad at us if we don't walk her. So I was by
Keep out the
myself tonight because
pod.
I had to walk her. I just wanted to hope that the conversations that we did have made it very clear that this is a multifaceted issue with multiple ways to tackle it, and that not any one way is probably the best way. So a synthesis between all the points we made and other points people make outside of this discussion, maybe even from avenues that people don't expect, should also be considered when trying to address this wider problem that we discussed tonight. So that's it. That's all I want to say.
Okay, and thank you. Cypher, I never have anything to say, but yeah, thank Totem is a good word. My friend, my inspiration, my inspirational friend. Ty, I wanted to hear from you from the beginning, and I want to hear you give it a big wrap at the end from your geopolitical perspective.
Sure. So when people ask me what I do on a general level, the way that I usually explain it is that I take demography, geography, politics, and economics and meld them into a spiderweb mesh that, with a sprinkling of my own insanity, kind of makes a bit of a worldview. Anyway, that in a nutshell is what immigration is. Some issues have primary and secondary effects, and they kind of wrap them up in their nice little bow that they're not too multifaceted. Immigration is not one of them. It has secondary, primary, and quaternary effects, and it has multiple nexus points that it interacts with major issues, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's your domestic GDP, whether it is your standard of living. All of these things that people really care a lot about, immigration has primary connections to. So not only is it a thing that it matters to people's lives, but it also is, it is also front and center as far as an issue. So it's important. Going into what I kind of left out for this conversation is I largely tried to set the tone. I tried to set like where the conversation might go, but I just don't know where the hell it went, to be honest. So I'll throw you a couple of my own takes when it comes to immigration. Generally, if it isn't obvious, I largely more pro. I believe that most people among the world are kind of, as somebody put it, are or want to be American. They like our ideals. They like the idea of making their own individual choices, and basically, in principles of liberalism, to a large degree, they want to embrace. They would like to be a part of. We do it better than some other folks. I'm not gonna nationalism on this one. I'm just going to say that people want to come here because we do offer opportunities and greatness, and I want to open the door for that. Is there problems with that? Yeah, I'm going to advocate strongly for being pro-immigration, but I'm also going to be strongly in favor of border control. I want to know, hey, when you come here, get your papers. Let me know who you are. Why should we trust you? Why shouldn't we? If you're human trafficking, we want to stop you. If you're trafficking heroin that's going to kill my neighbor next door, I'd rather stop you there too. There's a long and a short here, but the simple and the fact is that as far as immigration as a whole, I'm pro. Border security comes as a close second because you have to at least figure out who and what's going on. And then the third that really matters to me is, how do you treat the people who are leaving their lands to come to yours? Not only domestically, as in, are they actually treated as full citizens, or are they just treated as peons? There's a big conversation there. The other side of that is, what is making people pick up and leave? Are you treating them there fairly as well? That's a big conversation, which I think Cypher put up earlier, is that, CIA interventions, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's going to make people not want to stay at home. They're going to want to pick up and go thousands of miles to a place they never heard of, or more appropriately, they're going to pick up their stuff. They're going to go 2,000 miles to a place that they don't know a lot about, but they hear it's better than where they are. And that takes courage and a whole way of life and change. That's respectable and commendable, but it also means that there's a problem. And so, to bring it all full circle, I thank you all for joining me. I thank you for bringing me on. It's been a pleasure. And if you have any questions, I can stick around for a minute.
Oh, good. Okay. I want to thank all of y'all, if you will. And I hope, chat, you had a fluctuation stuff, and then we came back. So I do hope that we'll join you. If you guys would move over to the firing, I'm going to go ahead and close our VOD out, get it nice clean. I'll get it up. I'll put it up. Heart. I can't thank you enough. Scott, jump on in that voice chat. Scott has a lot to say. We're gonna end this for tonight. End the panel for tonight. Again, the guests are marvelous. Sit by, they'll be in the fire ring, some of them. Go hang out for a bit. If you guys will go ahead and exit, and then we'll just close our session out. Or do you want me to drag you over there? You've got it. Okay.
Well, that was a incredible conversation. I think I just exited Discord. An incredible conversation. I had a lot of fun, I'll say that. I think that for the most part, I'm pretty sure that I held oh, and I cut off chat. Oh no. I think that for the most part I held my own. I think that I still stuck to my guns, and I think that it's just simple. What CSP was saying and what Socratease was saying is very, very, very close, or nearly identical as to what I hold. I am a son of immigrants who came here. For those of you that don't know, I am a son of immigrants who came here undocumented and had to go through a lot of hardships for a long time and finally achieve citizenship. And here I am. And I think that the people that come here deserve this opportunity, right? I don't think that nobody should be denied that. And as Xenophane says, people are people. There should never be any type of second-class citizens. I mean, really heart-wrenching is the story that UniversalDiscourse was talking about, where, I mean, just think about that for a second. Indigenous people deported to Mexico. What? I mean, it's shocking, and it doesn't, like, compute in my head how that could even be a thing. The massive policy failure. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that that's like a thing. But, man, very, very heavy stuff, and I quite enjoyed the conversation with the rest of the guests. A few exchanges, of course, a few exchanges with me and Counterpoints, which I'm sure I'm going to review later. But right now, folks, I'm going to go ahead and call it for tonight. I really do want to appreciate everybody that was hanging out here on YouTube, because normally we don't stream on YouTube. We stream on Twitch. But hey, I think this was a great opportunity to try to bring this to a different audience. If you guys don't know who that was UniversalDiscourse. Phenomenal person. So I would highly recommend you check them out. Twitch.tv/UniversalDiscourse. Join us on Twitch at twitch.tv/adifficulttruth. We stream Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We do Saturday, tomorrow, actually, about noon Eastern Time, where we hang out. If you guys notice in chat, Breeze Difficult Truth, she is the co-host and the original A Difficult Truth, hangs out with us on Saturdays. So come say hi, come hang out with us and the cats. We have a great time. I had no idea you were streaming today. Sorry I didn't answer that one. I'm probably going to have to go through a bunch of messages. I was not on my phone. But yes, I actually just made the decision right before, because I originally was going to just be on the panel. I was just going to be on the panel. You know what? Let's do it. Let's get on it. And then I made the decision to say, you know what? How about I just throw this on YouTube? I haven't really done like a full length, this is like a full length standalone YouTube stream that we've done. So I think that I just made that decision. I talked to UniversalDiscourse. They said it was cool. So We did it. We did it, fam. Thank you guys so much for joining. Represent. Yeah, the cool thing about YouTube is that you can just like rewind the whole thing. It's not like Twitch where you have to catch it live. But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Next time, yes. Yes. All right, folks. It is almost 11:30, so I do got to get going. I want to thank you guys for hanging out for our first full-length YouTube stream. Again, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Good Talks eventually will get bigger the more you do them. I'm sure civilization depends on it. True. True. So, as always, guys, thank you guys so much. We will be here tomorrow, noon Eastern time. Thank you guys. And if you do enjoy the content, make sure you hit that subscribe button and follow us on all the social medias and follow us on Twitch. Once again, guys, please take care. Please stay safe. We love y'all. And we hope to see you guys in the next stream. See ya! It's so weird because usually on Twitch, we get to raid people. But thank you guys. I appreciate it. And